Warcraft, the Tree of Eternity. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526, Establishing Diplomatic Relations. In some previous events, the Great Demon King Dire had accepted the favor of the Undead Demon Realm. Zhao Kang revealed the news of the self-destruction of the Flame Demon Emperor to the Great Demon King Dire, which was naturally not to improve his reputation in vain. One of the purposes was to induce the Great Demon King Dire to go on an expedition to the Lava Kingdom, so that it would have no time to care about the undead invading the northern wilderness. On the other hand, Zhao Kang also had the intention of temporarily making friends with the Great Demon King Dire. Originally, the distant friendship in the strategy of making friends with the distant and attacking the nearby was aimed at the Naniuan Alliance, but who would have thought that the Naniuan Alliance was really disappointing and was completely wiped out in the Lava Kingdom. Zhao Kang could only turn his target to the more prestigious and famous Great Demon King Dire. It's a pity that Zhao Kang is not a native demon in the demon world, but a traverser from the earth. He still considers the problem with human thinking. If the Great Demon King Dire was a human, Zhao Kang might really be able to gain some of his friendship with these things. But the Great Demon King Dire is a demon without a moral bottom line. There is no so-called friendship between demons. If a demon accepts your favor, it may change from torturing you and then eating you to killing you directly and then eating you. If it weren't for the appearance of the Blood Elves, the Great Demon King Dire would have sent troops or even personally fought against the Undead Demon Realm. The strength shown by the Undead Demon Realm in the War of the Lava Kingdom was too strong, which made many Demon Kings wary. Not to mention the number of Demon Kings in the Undead Demon Realm. The fact that some undead heroes could even escape from the self-explosion of the Fire Demon Emperor was enough to shock most Demon Kings. The threat that such strength can bring is no less than that of the Lava Kingdom. In fact, compared with the Lava Kingdom without the Fire Demon Emperor, the threat of the Undead Demon Realm is even greater. If there were no Blood Elves to interfere, the Great Demon King Dire would have already led his army to support the northern wilderness. Zhao Kang's so-called strategy of making friends with distant countries and attacking nearby countries is destined to be ineffective against the demon race. Zhao Kang was also a little surprised by the appearance of the Blood Elves. It's just that, when he was on Earth, he had never come into contact with the game Warcraft, nor had he played Shankashan, so he didn't think of anything because of the Blood Elves. Especially after learning that the Blood Elves did exist in the demon world, he didn't care even more. However, Zhao Kang was still quite happy that the Blood Elves had disrupted the situation. The more muddy the water in the demon world, the more likely he would complete the main task. In comparison, Yufei, an old player of Warcraft, was much more sensitive. Not only because of the appearance of the Naga tribe and Tangyijia, the Traverser. When he discovered the existence of the undead, he directly deduced the existence of another Traverser. Now that the undead began to invade the northern wilderness of the Wuoan land, he paid close attention. This may be the advantage brought by information asymmetry. Before, when Illidan took Duke Dracula hostage to the Ice Purgatory, he destroyed a sub-base of the undead, which can be said to have offended the undead. But for some reason, the revenge of the undead that Yufei expected did not come later. Yufei didn't know at all that Zhao Kang's way of controlling the undead was completely different from what he imagined. After destroying the two demon castles in the northernmost part of the northern wasteland, the B-level mission was not completed, and after Illidan left, it was directly displayed as a mission failure. Zhao Kang had no choice but to give up the pursuit. In Yufei's opinion, now that the Blood Elves have really emerged, when those arms appear, the ruler of the undead, the suspected fellow traveler, should also discover his existence, right? Since the ruler did not pursue the offense against the undead, he might take the initiative to communicate with the Blood Elves now. Among the four great joys in life, there is the one of meeting an old friend in a foreign land. Yufei was right. Zhao Kang was indeed ready to communicate with the Blood Elves. But this was not because he knew that the nature of the Blood Elves was actually the same as his undead, nor was it because he knew of Yufei's existence, but because of the mission of the undead system. Side quest, allies, enemies, quest level, A level. Quest description: a powerful force has emerged in the demon world, the Blood Elves. This originally weak race has suddenly become powerful for some reason, and may be the arm of the undead. Of course, it may also be an enemy, which requires communication to be determined. Quest content: contact the Blood Elves, and establish an alliance, or determine them as enemies. Quest time limit: 1 month. Quest reward: depends on the completion of the quest. Speaking of this quest, there is no penalty for failure. Even if Zhao Kang ignores the Blood Elves and concentrates on attacking the Northern Wasteland, he will not lose anything if he fails to complete the quest. However, according to Zhao Kang's experience of using the Undead system for so long, such quests with unknown rewards often have good rewards. Just like before, the tall building of the Frozen Throne was also obtained through a quest with unknown rewards. Therefore, after thinking about it, Zhao Kang decided to try this A-level quest with unknown rewards. The pressure brought by the Northern Wasteland to the Undead is not great, and the Undead still have the time and energy to complete this quest. Besides, regardless of what the final mission reward will be, at least if the mission goes smoothly, the powerful Blood Elves can be turned into allies of the Undead. In this way, the possibility of completing the main mission will be greater and easier. However, Zhao Kang did not go out in person, but sent the recovered Kilthuzad to complete this task. Among Zhao Kang's heroes, only Kilthuzad, a genuine intelligence hero, is the smartest. Zhao Kang is more relieved to give it this mission, that seems to be just a diplomatic mission, but has a high level of A. As for Zhao Kang himself, he has not left the ice purgatory since he crossed over, and naturally he will not leave this time. Returning to his hometown Earth is Zhao Kang's only obsession in this alien world, and if he encounters an accident when he goes out, he will never be able to return to Earth. Therefore, although it has been several years since the crossing, Zhao Kang has been staying in the Frozen Throne, and has never left the protection of his men. Perhaps this seems a bit cowardly, but it is the best gesture an ordinary person can make to go home. It is really unreliable that the protagonist in those time travel novels, who was originally a loser and otaku, can quickly change his mentality and kill people everywhere, and even stop missing home and integrate into the alien world after traveling through time. Perhaps Zhao Kang's behavior is the norm for a time traveler. Let's not talk about Zhao Kang first, let's talk about Kilthuzad, the elf of the Blood Elves. Although there are still many demon castles in the northern wilderness that have not been taken by the undead, they are all lingering. Naturally, there is no way to stop Kilthuzad's travel. Only after entering the central region, this unimpeded progress was hindered. In the central region, the local demon forces are fighting an all-round war with the Blood Elves. Before, the Blood Elves had almost reached the border between the central region and the western region, and after the return of the great demon Lord Dire, they fought back and tore the extremely long battle line of the Blood Elves into many places, and regained a lot of territory. Now in the central region, the territories belonging to the demons and the places occupied by the Blood Elves are intertwined. Even you have me, and I have you. Kilthuzad did not bring many followers with him when he went to the Blood Elves. However, as a powerful demon king, it was too easy for him to be noticed. The demon kings in the central region knew each other. Kilthuzad's appearance in the territory of the central region demons would naturally be considered to be from the Blood Elves. Although the Blood Elves had never seen a demon king, the current situation was that they would rather kill 3,000 by mistake than let one go. When they met a demon king like Kilthuzad who was hiding his head and showing his tail, they would certainly kill him without hesitation. As a last resort, Kilthuzad had to flee for his life to the territory occupied by the Blood Elves. However, he was treated the same way by the Blood Elves. There was no demon king in the Blood Elves at all. How could a demon king suddenly appear except for the enemy? Needless to say, grab your weapons and kill him. Kilthuzad wanted to cry, but had no tears, so he had to quickly reveal his identity. Chapter 527, Kilthuzad's Bloody Mountain. Although Yufei could keep an eye on the situation of every Blood Elf at any time, the number of Blood Elves has now exceeded 100,000, so he would not waste his energy doing so. Even when he was in the Esraz continent, he was not paying attention to every Night Elf. Therefore, when Kilthuzad first appeared in the territory occupied by the Blood Elves, Yufei did not notice it. Kilthuzad's statement of identity did not bring any change to the treatment it suffered. the Blood Elves can be said to be completely unacceptable to the demon world. Even if Kil'thuzad is not the abyssless earth demon who is fighting the Blood Elves, he is also an enemy in the eyes of the Blood Elves. However, even if there are hundreds or thousands of ordinary Blood Elf warriors, it is difficult to fight Kil'thuzad, an 8th level genuine hero. Soon, things got out of hand. It was not until then that Eupheny discovered the existence of Kil'thuzad. When he switched his perspective, he was stunned for a moment. Isn't this an acquaintance? In the war when the South Abyss Alliance invaded the Lava Kingdom for the second time, Kil'thuzad left a deep impression on Eupheny. Because this lich is obviously stronger than other liches, and has cast a chain frost skill that other liches do not have. Although I don't know why there are differences between liches of the same type among the undead heroes, this does not prevent Eupheny from judging that this powerful lich should be considered a relatively important figure among the undead, although he does not know the name of this lich yet. When he found that Kil'thuzad appeared in his territory, Eupheny felt a hint of expectation in his heart. Is that fellow countryman finally going to communicate with him? Or is he not coming to ask for punishment until now? The misunderstanding was resolved, and the battle between Kil'thuzad and the Blood Elf warriors naturally stopped. Fortunately, Kil'thuzad was very wise, and knew that the mission he was responsible for this time was more important. He did not kill the Blood Elf warriors when fighting them, otherwise it would be difficult to stop the battle. However, although he decided to communicate with the lich sent by the undead, Eupheny was troubled about who to let communicate with him. Logically, Illidan should be the best, but Illidan is still the boss in the Lava Kingdom. The Blood Elves do not have any hero units, and the strongest ones are only legendary. Obviously, they are not matched with the epic lich sent by the undead in terms of diplomatic level. In the end, Eupheny had no choice but to let Kil'thuzad go directly to the place where the Sun Well is located. When Kil'thuzad entered the abandoned land, he soon discovered the light column that penetrated the sky and earth on the Blood Mountain, and naturally became curious. When it approached the Blood Mountain and gradually saw the scene on the Blood Mountain clearly, its face immediately became serious. Of course, to outsiders, that bone face would not have any expression at all. Hero units are all beings with advanced intelligence and have their own judgment ability. When Kil'thuzad discovered the buildings on the Blood Mountain, where the Blood Elves were trained, he immediately realized that something was wrong. The original undead's understanding of the Blood Elves came from Zhao Kang's understanding, and Zhao Kang's understanding of the Blood Elves came from the history of the demon world he learned. From the beginning, the image of the Blood Elves to the undead was that they were a native race of the demon world, but they suddenly became powerful for some reason. Of course, the native here is relative to the undead. However, what Kil'thuzad saw now has nothing to do with the native demon world. Those strange buildings, how can they be similar to the military buildings of the tribe? Seeing the new recruits coming out of the Blood Elf military training buildings from time to time, Kil'thuzad was shocked. Being able to see the military training buildings on Scarlet Mountain, it is natural to see the Sun Well where Euphany's soul resides. Before seeing the Sun Well, Kil'thuzad always thought that the Frozen Throne of the Undead was the most magnificent building in the world, but until now it had to admit that the end of the above sentence needed to be added with a 1. The light column of the Sun Well that penetrated the sky and the earth became more and more shining as the number of Blood Elves increased. And Kil'thuzad, led by several Blood Elf magicians, stepped onto Scarlet Mountain under the cover of this light. Just as he reached the middle of the mountain, Kil'thuzad discovered something that surprised him again: obelisks. Although these obelisks are somewhat different from the undead psychic towers in appearance, they are also similar in shape. Moreover, according to Kil'thuzad's own judgment, these monument-like and tower-like buildings are generally capable of attacking, like upgraded psychic towers. Looking at the Blood Elf warriors who kept coming out of the military training buildings, that obviously could not accommodate too many people, Kil'thuzad's doubts became more and more intense, and he also had vague guesses. Speaking of which, if it weren't for the war with the demons of the Abyss Land, the Blood Elves would not be able to train troops like this now, because of the lack of flesh and blood resources. Whether it is for the Night Elves of Eslays or the Blood Elves of the demon world, war is the fastest way to improve their strength. The only difference between the two is that the Blood Elves may rely more on war, while the Night Elves do not need flesh and blood resources. In the war with the demons of the abyss, although the Blood Elves suffered huge losses due to their lack of high-end strength, the blood and flesh resources they obtained were almost endless. The two offset each other, and the overall strength of the Blood Elves has not only not weakened, but has become stronger. When Kil'thuzad finally came to the Sunwell under the leadership of the Blood Elf magician, he was obviously shocked. As an intelligence hero, the Lich can be regarded as a kind of mage. Therefore, it is impossible for him not to feel the arcane aura emanating from the Sunwell. More importantly, looking at the Sunwell in front of him, Kil'thuzad felt a strange sense of familiarity. However, he couldn't tell where this familiarity came from. After bringing Kil'thuzad to the Sunwell, several Blood Elf magicians bowed respectfully and then retreated, leaving Kil'thuzad alone to face Yuffie. When Kil'thuzad got rid of the strange emotions in his heart, he found that there was no one on the top of the Scarlet Mountain except himself. Suddenly he was confused. What did those Blood Elves mean by bringing him here? Yuffie was also a little confused. Why did the Lich in front of him stand there without moving? Could it be that he was a stupid Lich? No, when he was in the Lava Kingdom, he saw that the Lich was quite skilled in commanding the undead heroes to fight. Well, Yuffie didn't know at all that Zhao Kang didn't know Warcraft, and he didn't know the existence of his fellow countrymen through the appearance of the Blood Elves, nor did he know the information about the Sunwell. As Zhao Kang's subordinate, Kil'thuzad certainly didn't know these. In this way, Yuffie was waiting for Kil'thuzad to take the initiative to talk to him, but Kil'thuzad didn't understand what the Blood Elves meant by bringing him to the Sunwell. The two sides were on the top of the bloody mountain, staring at each other for a long time. Until the end, it was Yuffie who couldn't stand this atmosphere first, so he had to take the initiative to talk to Kil'thuzad. At the same time, he sighed in his heart that the Lich on the other side was really a good negotiator, and he was so patient. If you take the initiative to talk, have you already handed the initiative to others? Kil'thuzad was startled by the voice that suddenly sounded in his mind, but then he gradually relaxed as the word came to his mind. However, the turmoil in his heart was indescribable. This building, which was as magnificent as the Frozen Throne and had mysterious power, was actually alive. This unreasonable situation was difficult for Kil'thuzad to accept. He could not imagine the scene of the ziggurat in the cemetery coming alive. However, thinking of the purpose of his trip, Kil'thuzad calmed down and soon began to talk with Yuffie. This conversation lasted half a day. Chapter 528, Excited Zhao Kang. When Kil'thuzad announced his name, Yuffie's body was shaken again and again. This is a famous person. The founder of the Cult of the Damned, the steward of the Lich King, the summoner of Archimond, the spreader of the Plague of Lordaeron. All of these titles belong to Kil'thuzad alone, and that's not all. At the same time, Yuffie had a strange feeling in his heart. In the information of Chenghe 3C, Kil'thuzad was resurrected by the Sunwell, and Yuffie is now the Sunwell. But from the tone of Kil'thuzad's conversation with himself, it can be seen that this Lich seems to know nothing about the Blood Elves and the Sunwell. Moreover, the real ruler of the Undead did not communicate with him through this Lich. Could it be that the ruler of the Undead did not intend to have an in-depth communication with him? Yuffie was extremely confused when he discovered the existence of the Naga. Although he did not immediately use the Elf King's clone to investigate the situation, he also communicated with Tang Yijia in person. Wasn't this fellow countryman who controlled the Undead too cautious? As the conversation deepened, Yuffie gradually realized that Kil'thuzad really had no real understanding of the Blood Elves. In other words, the Undead's understanding of the Blood Elves was exactly the same as that of the demons in the demon world. Yuffie was shocked at the time. Nimmer isn't the one who controls the Undead a time traveler? It shouldn't be. Judging from the greetings that Kil'thuzad made to the Blood Elves on behalf of his master, those grammars should obviously be the habits of the Chinese. Soon, Yuffie understood. It turned out that the controller of the Undead had no knowledge of the game Warcraft at all. This made Yuffie sigh with emotion. According to Tang Yijia's situation, it should not be possible for people who traveled through time through the game of Warcraft to come from different eras. Then, there are still people in China in the 21st century who don't understand Warcraft. The controller of the Undead can't be an old man or a primary school student, right? It is certain that the old people don't understand Warcraft. The older generation of Chinese people have always hated electronic games. The reason why Yu Fei still had the goosewalk of an elementary school student was that when he traveled through time, World of Warcraft had already shown signs of decline. Dota was better, and there were still many people playing it, but the once popular Frozen Throne, a strategy game commonly known as building a house, was no longer played by many people. Those once familiar names, Sky the Human Emperor and Moon the Moon Goddess, were no longer known to many young people. Yu Fei knew that this might be the inevitable result of the advancement of the times, but he could not avoid reminiscing. After calming down his emotions, Yu Fei continued to learn about the current situation of the undead with Cultivate. At this time, he also knew that the controller of the undead seemed to have no ability to communicate directly with him through his hands. Thinking of Tang Yijia's control over the Naga tribe, which seemed different from his own, Yu Fei had a vague idea in his heart. If he were to talk face to face with a fellow countryman from Earth, Yu Fei would definitely have a lot to say. But when communicating with Cultivate, who had a skull face, after the initial excitement of meeting a celebrity passed, Yu Fei seemed a little uninterested. Celebrities, Tyrant and Illidan are all under his command, so it's not surprising. These heroes don't have the memory of their background, and they are not actually those celebrities. Perhaps, they just borrowed a name. In the end, after a long time, Yu Fei finally understood Cultivate's intention to represent the undead realm and the blood elves to form an alliance to fight against the demons of the Abyss Land. Yu Fei curled his lips in his heart. It's not the undead realm, the undead are the undead. It's okay to deceive others, but can you deceive yourself, a discerning person? But he still agreed to the undead's request for an alliance. After all, they are fellow villagers. Although the fellow villager did not recognize his identity, this kind of cooperative and mutually beneficial thing can still be done. After receiving the affirmative response of the Blood Elf God, Cultivate's understanding of Yu Fei to the alliance, Cultivate hurriedly wanted to rush back to the Ice Purgatory to report. The system gave Zhao Kang a month to complete the task, so Zhao Kang also asked Cultivate to do the same thing. It would take about 10 days to travel from the abandoned land to the Ice Purgatory, so time could not be wasted. Moreover, Cultivate's experience with the Blood Elves made him discover many strange things, so he had to report back to his master as soon as possible to see what his master thought of this. However, before Cultivate went back, Yu Fei asked him to tell his master a message. If the controller of the undead was really a traverser from China, like himself and Tang Yijia, then he would definitely understand after hearing this message. The moment Cultivate stepped into the area occupied by the undead, Zhao Kang found in the undead system that the task ally, enemy, had been completed. The result of the task was naturally the alliance he was happy to see. It was just that the task reward made Zhao Kang a little depressed. Task reward, the message brought back by Cultivate is the reward for this task. What kind of message could compare to a magical building like the Frozen Throne? Originally, Zhao Kang was very much looking forward to the unknown reward of this A-level mission, but when this reward appeared half hidden, it exuded a huge pit of breath. What kind of news can Cultivate bring back? Nothing more than the alliance with the Blood Elves has been reached. At most, the Blood Elves are strong and exceed his expectations. Apart from that, Zhao Kang doesn't think there will be any unexpected surprises. Forget it, this mission itself is just a side quest, and it is not difficult to complete it. If there is no reward, there is no reward. It is also a good thing to have a powerful ally. Sighing, Zhao Kang saw Cultivate who hurried back in the cemetery. Before Cultivate spoke, Zhao Kang waved his hand. Okay, I know, the Blood Elves have agreed to form an alliance with us, right? Tell me if there is any news. In front of his subordinates, who are completely loyal to him, Zhao Kang seems more casual, but also has a majestic momentum. However, after Cultivate opened his mouth, this majestic aura disappeared immediately, and Zhao Kang's mouth opened wide enough to fit an egg. You say it again. Cultivate looked at his master in confusion, not understanding why his master was so surprised. However, he would not disobey his master's request, and quickly repeated the words that the Blood Elf God told him to say when he saw his master. The King of Heaven covers the earth. It was a standard Mandarin. That's right. What Yufei asked Kel'Thuzad to repeat was the first sentence he said when he saw Tanya Jiajia. For Zhao Kang, the lethality of this sentence was the same as it was at that time, and even the reaction was exactly the same. Pagoda suppresses a river monster? Zhao Kang answered in confusion, but soon came to his senses. Kel'Thuzad was his subordinate, and he had never shown any signs of being a time traveler. This sentence was obviously not what he wanted to say. Quick, tell me in detail everything you experienced when you went to the Blood Elves. Zhao Kang was very excited. As Kel'Thuzad told the story, Zhao Kang quickly came to a conclusion. The so-called god of the Blood Elves must be his fellow villager. The strange buildings that Kel'Thuzad mentioned look different from the buildings of the undead, but the effects seem to be exactly the same. It's just that what is produced here are undead creatures, while the Blood Elves produce Blood Elves. And the well where the fellow villager lives should be the same building as my frozen throne. No. I want to go to the Blood Elves in person. Excited, Zhao Kang gave up his idea of not wanting to step out of the ice purgatory and decided to go to the Blood Elves' sphere of influence again with Kel'Thuzad to find his fellow villager. The words in the middle about the decline of Warcraft are not nonsense, but the real feeling in Hanchan's heart. I can't forget the crazy enthusiasm when I first came into contact with war in the first year of high school, but it's a pity that the good times are long gone. Chapter 529. Fellow villagers meet fellow villagers. When stepping out of the ice purgatory, Zhao Kang silently said in his heart, this is a small step for me personally, but it is a big step for fellow villagers to meet. If it weren't for Yufei's words to Kel'Thuzad, Zhao Kang might not have walked out of the ice purgatory until the day when he completed the main task and met the conditions to return to Earth. Of course, it is also possible to die on the way to complete the task after all. Zhao Kang is not the protagonist. And now, his fate may have changed. When Zhao Kang set off, Yufei was also thinking about fate and Zhao Kang. If only I traveled through it alone, it would be normal. On Earth, there will be new time travel novels every day. If only Tangyajia and I traveled through it, it might be a coincidence. Although the probability is not high, double travel is still possible. But now I know that 3 people have traveled through it. Although the undead among these 3 people did not travel through the world of Esraz, the world of Esraz and the demon world are like 2 sides of the same coin. They have a very deep relationship and are connected to each other. They can also be regarded as one world. More importantly, the abilities of these 3 travelers, or the Golden Fingers, all come from Warcraft. Among them, there is even the undead controller, who has no idea about the existence of Warcraft. In an instant, Yufei was confused. Having been tested by various online novels for a long time, he quickly speculated several possibilities in his mind. After the real Azeroth world was destroyed, the seeds sown were triggered on the earth, bringing us to the other world. The immortal gods that exist secretly on the earth want to invade the other world and use this method to detect the other world, using us travelers as pawns. Or is this a new virtual game developed by Blizzard, and we are used as test subjects without our knowledge? If Yufei is using the Elf King's clone now, he must be scratching his scalp in confusion. It's a pity that the soul is now living in the sun well, and he can't make any movements. Only from the disordered mental fluctuations can Yufei's excitement at the moment be discovered. Among the above speculations, Yufei thinks the most likely one is the second one. He clearly remembered that when he was staying up all night in an internet cafe, a mysterious voice suddenly came out of the computer and took him to another world. However, all this is just speculation, and a lot of things are needed to verify it. Yufei suddenly looked forward to the arrival of the undead controller. Although even if they verify each other, they may not be able to solve the mystery of crossing. It is also a good experience to meet the false report of the fellow villager. As the controller of the undead, the host of the undead system, Zhao Kang is an earthling and has no strong strength, but his body has been transformed into a semi-undead creature, which is extremely powerful. Although Kel'Thuzad is an epic peak powerhouse, Zhao Kang can still keep up with its speed. So, another 10 days later, Kel'Thuzad brought Zhao Kang to the abandoned land. At this time, the war between the Blood Elves and the demons in the middle of the Wuhan land has evolved into a protracted war. Between the 2 sides, one has a certain advantage in high-end strength, and the other has a complete unified battle formation of arms. For a while, no one can do anything to anyone. Of course, in Yufei's mind, this protracted war will not be endless. There is at most half a year left before the destruction of the demon world will come. That time will be the end of the war and the opportunity to obtain the Heart of Darkness. In fact, the Blood Elves, who have obtained a large amount of flesh and blood resources and demon hearts in the war, and are not troubled by any resources, have gradually trained more than 600,000 Blood Elves. But there will naturally be losses in the war. Now the number of Blood Elves on the front battlefield is about 350,000, and the hidden reserve is 150,000. However, the military training building on the Bloody Mountain is still training soldiers. Although compared with the millions of demons in the central region, 350,000 Blood Elves seem a little small, but under Yufei's arrangement of rotating new and old troops to go to the battlefield to gain experience, these 350,000 Blood Elves and the Blood Elves in the reserve have generally reached the elite level. There is nothing wrong with the Blood Elves fighting demons in various places. After all, they are scattered, and the number in one place will not be too large. Zhao Kang was not surprised when he passed through the central region. But when he came to the foot of the Bloody Mountain, he was also shocked. 150,000 Blood Elf soldiers are all stationed around the Bloody Mountain. These troops are all elite Blood Elves, which makes Zhao Kang feel that they are stronger than the undead troops under his command, who are not afraid of death. Compared with the buildings of the undead, the Blood Elves' bloody barracks, magic academy and other buildings are more in line with the aesthetics of the Earth's human beings, which also makes Zhao Kang feel very emotional. There is no doubt that Zhao Kang soon met Yufei and confirmed each other's identities. It may be a bit wrong to say that they met. Yufei's soul is in the sun well and cannot show up. He can only talk to Zhao Kang directly in his mind, like he met Kilthuzad at that time. The two fellow villagers who met for the first time naturally had a lot to say, and of course the content of the conversation was nothing more than reminiscing about the days on Earth. During the conversation, Yufei and Zhao Kang not only knew each other's names, but also found out to their surprise that they lived in Xi'an before crossing, and their hometowns were also in southern Shaanxi. This discovery quickly brought the distance between the two closer. But what made Yufei feel a little regretful was that this fellow villager was not a cute girl like Tanya Jiajia. On the contrary, Zhao Kang actually looked much more handsome than before he crossed over. It was simply unforgivable. Because they were close fellow villagers, Yufei was originally hesitant about whether to tell Zhao Kang some things, but he also said them out loud. Zhao Kang, I may be a little sorry to say that your undead participated in the war between the South Abyss Alliance and the Lava Kingdom, and I actually participated as well. After a pause, looking at Zhao Kang's puzzled expression, Yufei continued, yes, I was on the side of the Lava Kingdom at that time, or maybe it can't be considered standing on either side. My goal was to weaken the overall strength of the demon world. Both sides were enemies, although only one of my men participated in the war. In Zhao Kang's mind, Yufei smiled. The name of this man occupies an important position in the background of Warcraft that I explained to you before. He is the demon hunter Illidan. In the previous conversation, Yufei gave Zhao Kang a good popular science so that he could have a real understanding of his undead. Hearing this, Zhao Kang couldn't wait to ask questions. Demon hunter Illidan? In the story you told, this guy's indeed very powerful and important, but according to Kilthuzad, he didn't see that Illidan during the war. Also, I didn't expect Kilthuzad to be such a guy with a deep background. Zhao Kang smacked his lips, as if he was surprised at the identity of the lich under his command. Speaking of this, it is naturally the aspect that Yufei is more proud of. Illidan's ability is not comparable to Kilthuzad. After all, he is now at the mythical level. As a demon hunter, Illidan actually has the ability to transform into the demons he has killed. The other Balrog of the Lava Kingdom that Kilthuzad saw in the war, the second in command of the Lava Kingdom named Gothmo, was transformed by Illidan. After talking for a long time, Yufei and Zhao Kang have established a good friendship, and this kind of comparison will naturally not affect the relationship between the two. Although Zhao Kang can't see Yufei's appearance, he can imagine his smug attitude now. But this is not the point. After hearing Yufei's words, Zhao Kang's eyes lit up. Doesn't that mean that the territory occupied by the two of us now includes the Ice Purgatory, the Abandoned Land, the Lava Kingdom, and the northern and eastern parts of the Abyssless Land? Yufei was stunned. It seems so. The Blood Elves and the Undead have even occupied more than half of the land in the Demon Realm. Zhao Kang then made a suggestion. Why don't we work together to completely occupy this Demon Realm, half for each of us? Chapter 530 Discussion on Prophecy. Zhao Kang's proposal was undoubtedly very tempting, but after just a little thought, Yufei said that this could not be done. Zhao Kang was puzzled. With the current strength of the Undead and the Blood Elves, they would definitely succeed in conquering the Demon Realm together. In the current Demon Realm, only the Wuhuan land is still under the rule of the demons, and the Nanyuan is basically useless. The Blood Elves have Illidan, a mythical strongman, who can be compared to the Fire Demon Emperor 1,000 years ago. And the difference from the Fire Demon Emperor and the Lava Kingdom at that time is that if the Blood Elves and the Undead unite, the Demon King class has more than 40 heroes of the Undead, the elite troops have the elite core of the Blood Elves, the cannon fodder troops have the Skeleton Sea and the Gowl Sea of the Undead. It can be said that there is no shortcoming in any aspect. In this way, if the Blood Elves and the Undead really unite to conquer the Demon Realm, it is not a difficult thing. For Zhao Kang, this is a major event that will allow him to complete the main task and upgrade the main base to the Black Castle. Therefore, he didn't understand why Yufei refused. Next, Yufei explained to him the reason for rejecting this wonderful proposal. Zhao Kang, it's not that I don't want to help you. Occupying the demon world is also good for me. But there is something I haven't had time to tell you before. Yufei was silent for a while. He was considering whether to tell everything. In the end, thinking that Zhao Kang was a real fellow from the same planet, country, province or even city as him, he decided to be frank with him. Actually, I'm not from the demon world. Looking at Zhao Kang's strange eyes, Yufei certainly knew what he was thinking. Nonsense, we are all from Earth. No, I'm not talking about coming from Earth or something. I'm not talking about the demon world, I mean the world after crossing over. After crossing over from Earth, the world I arrived in was not the demon world, but the world of Veslazer. Zhao Kang was shocked. The world of Veslazer? The world you told me about, the world where the story of Warcraft takes place. Yufei was helpless. In fact, he almost got confused when he first learned the name of the world of Veslazer. No, the background is called Azeroth. It has nothing to do with this world of Esraz. There's no need to dwell on this. What I mean is that I traveled from Earth to the world of Esraz and came to this demon world for some reason. Zhao Kang finally understood, but new questions arose. What is that world of Esraz like? It should be different from this desolate demon world, right? He wisely did not ask Yufei why he came to the demon world. Now that they have become close friends, if he asks more questions, the friendship that has just been established between the two may be broken. Yufei was also a little confused about how to answer if Zhao Kang asked him why he came to the demon world. Zhao Kang did not ask any more questions, which made Yufei feel much better about him. Well, I will describe this to you in detail later. Now I want to talk about something more important. The reason why Illidan was allowed to infiltrate the Lava Kingdom is related to the reason why I came to the demon world, or to the Fire Emperor. When the Fire Emperor blew himself up, Illidan got a few memories of the Fire Emperor by chance. Yufei's voice gradually became solemn, and Zhao Kang's expression became solemn as he listened to this important news. In the Fire Emperor's few memories, there is a prophecy about the fate of the demon world. The content of the prophecy is roughly translated as the demon world will be destroyed before the Fourth Holy War, that is, within half a year. In this destruction, the weak will be destroyed together, the strong will survive, and the undead will be sublimated. Obviously, the undead here should refer to your undead. Yufei stopped talking for a while, letting Zhao Kang think about the information contained in this prophecy. Soon, Zhao Kang raised his head and asked a question. Yufei, Brother Fei, are you sure this prophecy is true? Perhaps considering that he had some doubts about Yufei, Zhao Kang not only called Brother Fei to show respect, but also added a sentence. I don't mean to doubt it, but this matter is too important. Yufei certainly understood Zhao Kang's feelings. If he had received a prophecy about the Night Elves in this alien world, where there were no Night Elves, he would definitely feel very terrified. With an affirmative tone, Yu Fei answered Zhao Kang's question. I have confirmed this prophecy again and again. It is indeed obtained from the memory of the Flame Demon Emperor, and it has a history of thousands of years or even longer. Zhao Kang was silent. Yu Fei had received this prophecy for a long time, and had a lot of ideas. Now he started to communicate with Zhao Kang. The prophecy implies that the demon world will be destroyed by external forces. I have thought about it, and feel that this external force should not be us, but someone else, or non-human. If this is true, then there should be a catastrophe in the demon world, and the forces in the demon world will be reshuffled. If the two of us occupy the demon world together, we will be the ones to bear the catastrophe. On the contrary, if those demons are left behind, they will become a shield and a mirror, allowing us to see the true face of the catastrophe. Zhao Kang was shocked. He had just learned about this prophecy, and did not have many ideas of his own. Yu Fei's analysis seemed very reasonable to him, and he secretly agreed with it in his heart. After a long silence, Zhao Kang finally spoke again. Brother Fei, what you said makes sense. If the prophecy is true, we can't conquer the demon world now. Otherwise, even if we conquer the demon world, we can only rule it for half a year, or even less than half a year. It's only half a year anyway, we can wait. If there is a catastrophe at that time, then we will be rewarded for being so cautious. If not, it won't be too late to join forces, to occupy the demon world, right? Yu Fei certainly had no objection. In half a year, the strength of the undead and the blood elves will obviously be stronger than it is now. If there is no catastrophe, it won't take much effort to occupy the demon world. But this guy seems to be concerned about the wrong point, right? So what kind of mentality is it to care about whether you can occupy the demon world? Just like Yu Fei was reserved about Zhao Kang did not explain the situation of the undead system in detail, and naturally he would not mention his main task. Yu Fei, who didn't know these, naturally couldn't help but remind Zhao Kang. In fact, in that prophecy, you should be more concerned about the sentence the undead will be sublimated, right? This may be related to the fate of your undead. Zhao Kang didn't seem to care too much about Yu Fei's reminder. Compared to Yu Fei, who has always been the father god of the Night Elves and Blood Elves, Zhao Kang's control over the undead comes from the undead system, and he subconsciously believes that the undead system is omnipotent, and he does not have the mentality that Yu Fei wants to control all the secrets. Zhao Kang's attitude made Yu Fei not say much, and he could only introduce the situation of the Esra's world to Zhao Kang as agreed before. When talking about the undead disaster that occurred in the Esra's world a year ago, Zhao Kang looked strange and quickly admitted that it was related to the undead. But he didn't expect that it was the world where Yu Fei was after crossing. At that time, he just wanted to complete the task and didn't know much. Yu Fei had guessed it a long time ago and didn't ask Zhao Kang why he launched the undead disaster. Anyway, in that undead disaster, the Night Elves not only did not suffer any losses, but also made a lot of war money, so there was no need to pursue it. Zhao Kang was obviously very yearning for the Esra's world described by Yu Fei. Compared with the demon world, a place where no one lives, the Esra's world is undoubtedly a paradise. I'm afraid this comparison is also one of the reasons why the demons launched the holy war. If possible, when things in the demon world are over, how about you take me to the world of Veslazer? It was fine without the comparison, but with the comparison, Zhao Kang felt that the environment in the demon world was simply unbearable, and immediately made this request. Yu Fei didn't think there was anything wrong with it, so he agreed. But they didn't know at this time that Zhao Kang didn't have the opportunity to go to the world of Veslazer. Han Chen rarely writes dialogue scenes, but there are more dialogues in these two chapters. I don't know if everyone is used to it equals. Chapter 531 The catastrophe is coming. Usually in the Frozen Throne, Zhao Kang's men rarely have the qualifications to enter the Frozen Throne. Only heroes like Cultivate can. But these heroes can't communicate with Zhao Kang about things on Earth, because they were originally created by the Dark Altar. Although they have high intelligence, they have no memory of the Earth. After a long time, Zhao Kang felt that he almost forgot how to speak the familiar Mandarin. This time when he met Yufei, he seemed to make up for what he hadn't said in the past few years. After discussing the business, he chatted with Yufei non-stop. These chats have no practical significance. Zhao Kang and Yufei just tell each other about their experiences on Earth, and imagine what the Earth has become now, and what they should do if they return to Earth. If possible, Zhao Kang would like to stay on the Blood Mountain and be with Yufei. A strong gay feeling arises spontaneously. But his control over the undead is not as simple as Yufei's control over the Night Elves and Blood Elves. Compared to Yufei's God mode, which is similar to the control method in the game, Zhao Kang's control over the undead is closer to reality. In addition to providing task guidance, the undead system only has data statistics function, and it does not have the ability to know the status of any subordinate unit and the surrounding environment at any time like Yufei. Therefore, it is already a very risky thing for Zhao Kang to leave the ice purgatory for 20 days to find Yufei to reminisce. Although he is reluctant, he has to return to the territory of the undead to take power and maintain the situation. After the two people who have a very good relationship made some agreements about the predicted catastrophe, Zhao Kang left the bloody world in tears. Of course, this is an exaggeration. Zhao Kang, whose body has been transformed into a semi-undead creature, will not shed tears. Because of the speculation about the catastrophe, Zhao Kang and Yufei also agreed that, although they have to continue to maintain the situation of the war with the demons, they only need to defend the previous results. Everything else will be discussed after the catastrophe is over. As a result, the demons in the central region and the northern wasteland found that the offensive of the Blood Elves and the undead demon realm suddenly slowed down a lot, and the desire to attack became less intense than before. The demons thought that this was a sign of the lack of strength of both sides, and they launched a counterattack in a hurry, but they were defeated by the Blood Elves and the undead who were well prepared and had to live in peace. At this time, most of the northern wasteland and the abyssless land had been occupied by the undead. The central region was better. After the return of the great demon King Dire, they regained a lot of territory. Later, the Blood Elves deliberately let it go, and in the end, less than half of the territory was occupied by the Blood Elves. If you want to be more specific, then the territory occupied by various forces in the demon realm can also be expressed by data. The overall area of the demon realm is still 100, of which the undead occupy 15 of the ice purgatory plus most of the northern wasteland 10, a total of 20. The Blood Elves occupy 5 of the abandoned land plus 3 of the eastern part of the abyssless land plus nearly half of the central region 7, a total of 15. In fact, the Lava Kingdom ruled by Illidan should also be counted as the territory of the Blood Elves, which is 20. In other words, in such a large demon world, the territory that truly belongs to the demons is actually less than half, that is, 45% of the area. If Yufei and Zhao Kang had not wanted to keep them as shields to see the catastrophe, the demon world would probably have been divided equally between the two races. However, the demons could not recognize the situation and kept clamoring to wipe out the alien race. It's a pity that, because the West District and the Central Region are not united enough, and their strength is really insufficient, they can only maintain the status quo in the end. The consequence of this embarrassing situation is that the Holy War, that was originally held once every 5,000 years in the demon world, no demon force can even do the preparations. Because this preparation is to occupy the Holy War altar, and these altars are all in the abandoned land, occupied by the Blood Elves, and they are firmly held by the Blood Elves as the last channel to evacuate the demon world and return to the world of Veslays. In this way, 4 months have passed while the demons, the undead, and the Blood Elves maintain a delicate balance. Every day during these 4 months, Yufei felt extremely nervous. The prophecy did not give the exact time of the destruction of the demon world, and every day within half a year could happen. Faced with this unknown danger, even though Yufei had become accustomed to being a god, and was almost no longer moved by external things, he was still worried. However, 4 months was enough time for Yufei to make every step. As the time of the destruction of the demon world approached step by step, Yufei had withdrawn all the Blood Elf troops back to the Blood Mountain 2 months ago, and gathered them together. There were 600,000 Blood Elves, all of whom were elite and above. If this force could be successfully brought back to the world of Veslays, Yufei would have the confidence to launch an offensive against the human world immediately and achieve his ambition to unify the continent of Slays. The only one who had not returned to the Blood Mountain was Illidan, who was still leading the Lava Kingdom as Gothmo. However, there is a scroll of returning to the city in Illidan's inventory. Although he cannot return to the world of Esras directly, he can return to Scarlet Mountain at any time with the Sun well as the target. Even though the Blood Elves have reduced their forces and voluntarily given up the previously occupied territory of the Abyssland, the demons of the Abyssland did not dare to take back the previous territory for a while. Who knows if this is a strategy of the Blood Elves to lure the enemy deep into the depths. The demons who have suffered losses are very cautious. It has been 2 months since the Blood Elves reduced their forces, but the demons have only taken back the territories in the central region. They did not even dare to advance to the small area in the east of the Abyssland, let alone enter the abandoned land. And at this time, the final catastrophe came so abruptly. Uferi thought that the destruction of the demon world in the prophecy would really have to wait until the so-called Holy War came, but when there were only 2 months left before the space channel between the demon world and the world of Esras was actively opened, a big scene appeared. Although the original demon world was not bright, the sky always maintained a dim yellow light, just like the evening in Slays. This sky color has never changed, neither getting brighter nor darker. However, on this day, the sky of the demon world suddenly darkened. To be precise, this kind of dark-like situation is not completely dark, but the feeling that the demon world seems to be in the shadow of something. Uferi only felt that the constant arcane torrent radiating from the sun well where his soul resided to the sky seemed to be blocked at the moment when the demon world was dark. The entire demon world fell into a moment of silence at the moment of darkness, and then it exploded. Countless demons and even the flame creatures of the Lava Kingdom were all boiling, uttering various words of doubt or surprise. Compared with the fact that the war that lasted for more than a year suddenly ended, the change in the sky of the demon world attracted the local residents of the demon world more. They didn't know what this change meant, but faced the change with a joyful or novel attitude. The sky that had remained unchanged for thousands of years suddenly changed. The demons who didn't smell the danger from it were a little uncomfortable with the darkness, but they didn't panic. Relatively speaking, the Lava Kingdom was better. Although the entire demon world seemed to be suddenly shrouded in shadows and turned dark, it couldn't block the light emitted by the geographical level of the demon world itself. That is, the magma flowing everywhere in the Lava Kingdom. Because of the existence of magma, the area where the Lava Kingdom is located appears brighter. However, under this bright reflection, no flame creature discovered that in the belly of the big volcano in the center of the volcanic basin, their current ruler, the fire demon King Gothmo, had mysterious runes around his body, and then disappeared without a trace. Illidan had no nostalgia for the Lava Kingdom. In fact, when the fire demon emperor exploded and died and his soul was destroyed by Illidan, he wanted to return to the place where the father god was. It was just that Uferi considered that he was still needed to lead the Lava Kingdom, to contain the demons in the Abyssland, so he stayed until now. Now, the destruction of the demon world, the final catastrophe, has come. Uferi needs Illidan, the mythical strongest, to stay by his side as a guarantee, so he did not hesitate to use the scroll to return to the Scarlet Mountain. Strangely, the demon world has been shrouded in shadows for 10 days, but there is still no new change. At least, in Uferi's perception, there was no turmoil. This is not scientific. Uferi's soul in the sun well looked solemn. During this period of time, he had felt a call from the Night Elves in the world of Slays, but in order not to miss the destruction of the demon world and get the Heart of Darkness, Uferi did not respond to the call of the Night Elves. But if the so-called destruction is just a change in the sky, then is it a bit of an exaggeration? No, it can't be just like this. Uferi waited quietly. At the same time, in the center of the ice purgatory, inside the frozen throne, Zhao Kang also looked nervous. In the prophecy that Uferi told him, there was information related to the undead. In fact, compared to Uferi who hoped that the demon world would be destroyed and obtain the Heart of Darkness, Zhao Kang hoped that the demon world would continue to exist intact, so that he could successfully complete the main task of occupying half of the territory of the demon world, rather than making any new tricks. But things did not go as planned. While Yu Fei was waiting, Zhao Kang was nervous, and most demons were still confused. The real catastrophe finally came. I owe one chapter today, and I will make it up tomorrow. Chapter 532 Titan. In the middle region of Wuhan Land, Dire Demon City. Half a month had passed since the demon world was shrouded in shadow. In the castle at the center of Dire Demon City, Great Demon King Dire was pacing restlessly. Around him, there were 3 other demon kings watching him pace back and forth. Originally, the 6 demon kings under Great Demon King Dire were all occupying territory in Nanion, but before that, in order to deal with the Blood Elves, 3 demon kings were summoned back by him. The price paid for this was that 2 of the 6 demon cities that Nanion had already obtained were taken away by the powerful demon forces in the west. However, Great Demon King Dire did not lose out. The forces in the middle region had already been divided. Even as the first demon king, he only had his own demon city, Dire Demon City. But the middle region had been cleansed by the Blood Elves before, and even some demon kings were beaten and killed by the Blood Elves, so naturally there were many empty demon cities. After the counterattack was successful, these empty demon cities naturally belonged to the living demon kings. Although the Great Demon King Dire lost 2 demon castles in the South Abyss, he regained 3 in the central region. The Great Demon King Dire was also very puzzled about the sudden disappearance of the Blood Elves in the Wuhan Land more than 2 months ago, and believed that there must be a conspiracy. But after 2 months, there was no new action by the Blood Elves, and the Great Demon King Dire couldn't help but want to test it. But at this time, the demon world changed. This situation that had not appeared in tens of thousands of years naturally made the Great Demon King Dire give up some actions and wait and see. But it was another half a month later, and the shadow still existed, but no new changes occurred. This made the Great Demon King Dire, who had coveted the small area in the east of the Wuhan Land, very anxious. The reason why it was wandering back and forth in the castle now was to consider whether to send troops to attack the small piece of land in the east of the Wuhan Land that was originally occupied by the Blood Elves. It was just because of the change in the sky that the forces of the entire demon world were now quietly guarding their own territory and not daring to act rashly. It really took some courage to fire the first shot. Tap, tap. The steps of the Great Demon King Dire were getting slower and slower, and finally stopped. Do it. It made a decision in its heart. Under the change in the sky, no force dared to act for the time being. This might be an opportunity for itself. The Great Demon King Dire raised his head and looked at the darkening sky and was about to order the Demon Kings to take action. However, the scene he saw when he looked up made him hold back the words that were already in his throat and turned into a look of shock. What is this? The voice of the Great Demon King Dire was a little trembling, which surprised the other 3 Demon Kings. Then, they also looked up at the sky at the same time, wanting to see what made the quiet Great Demon King Dire lose his composure. So, they and the Great Demon King Dire saw a spectacular scene together. In the sky that had become dark half a month ago, many faint lights suddenly appeared. Now the light became brighter and brighter, as if it was falling from the sky. The sky of the demon world was originally a constant dim yellow, without even a star, so these demon kings could not describe this scene. If an earthling were here, they would call this scene a meteor shower. The meteors fell very quickly, but most of them fell to other places. The Demon King's sharp eyesight allowed them to count that there were 7 lights falling on the area of Dire Demon City. Until then, the Great Demon King Dire and his 3 Demon Kings still did not understand what this scene meant, but just stared up at the sky blankly. The 7 meteors that fell on the area of Dire Demon City became larger and larger as the 4 Demon Kings looked up, and finally the Demon King's powerful perception captured the landing point and the scene in it. At this time, the 7 meteors had already ignited a blazing flame around them, but it was not a flame of any special nature. However, the huge humanoid shadow wrapped in these flames made the 4 Demon Kings feel a little uneasy. Fortunately, the meteor with a strong impact force did not fall in Dire Demon City, but was distributed in the wilderness around Dire Demon City. Although it might hit some nearby towns of demon nobles, it had nothing to do with the Great Demon King Dire. With a thought, the Great Demon King Dire flew up and flew towards the meteor closest to Dire Demon City. The 3 Demon Kings under him were stunned for a moment. After looking at each other, one demon king stayed to guard the city, and the other two flew with the great demon king Dire. The speed of the meteor falling was much faster than the speed of the great demon king Dire's flight. The great demon king Dire and the two demon kings who followed him had just flown out of Dire Demon City, and the meteor that fell closest to Dire Demon City had already landed on the ground silently. That's right, it was silent. Originally, the great demon king Dire thought that the falling light would cause an effect similar to the spell meteorite falls, but who would have thought that it was just air that fell, and there was no sound from the place where the meteor fell. However, the three demon kings who had already approached the landing point of the meteor found that there was an extremely tall figure standing where the light fell. With a sinking heart, the great demon king Dire did not retreat at all, but flew towards the figure. He did not know the existence of Illidan, and he thought he was the strongest in the demon world today, and there were two demon kings following him. There was only one opponent, so how could he be afraid of him? After approaching a certain distance, the great demon king Dire finally saw the specific appearance of the tall figure. It was a giant about 300 meters tall. Even in the demon world with many huge demons, a giant 300 meters tall was in existence that had never been seen before. This giant who fell from the sky was bare-chested and backless, and had no clothes or armor on his body. Only a skirt that seemed to be made of leaves was wrapped around his crotch. Underwear? Anyway, it's just something to cover up. The giant's eyes were tightly closed, as if he had no consciousness. From the giant's body, Dire the great demon and others did not feel the existence of energy at all, which surprised them. In the demon world, even the powerful demons who mainly fight with hands-on combat cannot help but control energy. If they only rely on their bodies, as long as they are still flesh and blood, they will soon feel tired under high-intensity battles. Therefore, the use of energy is a means that every demon must master, and master with heart. Apart from other things, if it does not rely on energy, how can this 300-meter tall giant support this huge body and not collapse? And how can it not sink into the ground because of its heavy body? The three demon kings were very puzzled, but they did not act rashly. Suddenly, the giant's tightly closed eyes finally opened. The eyes of the 300-meter tall giant are bigger than those of the 3-meter tall Dire the great demon, but there is no brilliance in his eyes. The three Dire the great demon kings, who were already close to the giant, clearly heard the giant's voice. Planet Cleaner Giant System beep, beep, error, error. The formation has been changed to Plane Cleaner Giant System 013 Team. Titan B0125 has arrived at the designated location. What does this mean? The great demon king Dire and his men looked at each other in bewilderment. For some reason, they could understand the language spoken by the giant who had clearly descended from outer space, but they did not understand the meaning of these words. At most, the two numbers gave the three demon kings some guesses. At this time, a new voice came out of the Titan's mouth. The mission of descending has been completed. The second step is to start the cleaning mission. The mission targets creatures with energy level below B. After another sentence that the three demon kings could not understand, the Titan took a big step and rushed towards the direction of Dire Demon City. The three demon kings were shocked. Although this giant who had descended from outer space seemed to have no energy in his body, his huge size alone was enough to cause huge damage and destruction. The 30-meter high wall of Dire Demon City, which was originally proud of, was equivalent to a piece of dirt in front of the Titan giant. No, this giant cannot be allowed to go to Dire Demon City, otherwise it will definitely cause huge chaos and losses. Led by the great demon king Dire, the three demon kings simultaneously launched an attack on the walking Titan giant. However, the effect of the attack surprised the three demon kings. Even the attack launched by the most powerful great demon king Dire could not leave mark on the giant. The three energy waves only made the skin of the Titan giant that was hit brighter, a little red, and then disappeared without a trace. However, although the attack did not work, it made the Titan giant stop. The three demon kings were secretly happy. It seemed that Dire Demon City could be saved. However, they were too happy too early. Under attack, energy level B. The attack is determined to be non-threatening. Attack source. The Titan giant looked at the three demon kings with two huge eyeballs, including the great demon king Dire, and they all felt as if their skin was peeled off. We have found 3 B-class creatures, not targets for cleanup missions. The first priority is to complete the cleanup mission, and no counterattacks will be given. After saying this sentence very quickly, the Titan giant ignored the 3 demon kings and continued to walk towards the dire demon city. The 3 demon kings were very anxious. Led by the great demon king Dire, they continued to launch endless attacks on the Titan giant. However, no matter how they attacked the giant, energy waves, venom or spells, at most, they made the Titan giant's skin red as before, and did not cause any damage, nor could they stop the Titan giant. 3 updates today. By the way, today is the 6th anniversary of 5.12, so let's observe a moment of silence. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533 Unstoppable. Although for some reason the Titan didn't make any noise when it landed, the noise made by such a huge body of 300 meters in height during movement was huge. The Demon King who stayed in Dire Demon City had the sharpest perception. He was waiting for the other 3 Demon Kings to come back in the castle and couldn't help but fly out after hearing the huge noise. Looking at the Titan striding from a distance and the 3 Demon Kings surrounding it and attacking it like flies, the Demon King who stayed behind opened his mouth and got bigger and bigger. What's going on? Whether it was from the perspective of Dire Demon King himself or the other Demon Kings under him, Dire Demon King had become the strongest in the demon world after the death of Flame Demon Emperor. Even the threatening Murphy Demon King died in the Lava Kingdom, and Dire Demon King had already boasted that he was invincible in single combat in the demon world. However, this scene now overturned this statement. Dire Demon King and the other 2 ordinary Demon Kings actually had no way to deal with this mere Titan. In fact, Dire Demon King was now full of panic. It remembered that there were more than 1 meteor falling from the sky. There were 6 meteors falling in the area near Dire Demon City alone. Facing a Titan, Dire Demon King had no way to deal with it. It couldn't imagine what to do if the 6 meteors falling around it were all Titans. Although the Titan did not attack the 3 demons who were constantly attacking it, its firm steps did not change at all, and it walked towards Dire Demon City unswervingly. The legs that were more than 100 meters long took steps, seemingly at a low frequency, but the walking speed was extremely fast. Seeing that Dire Demon City was already within reach, Dire Demon King gritted his teeth and stopped making unnecessary moves. It and the other 2 demons had tried every possible way, but the Titan's skin, which had no protection at all, seemed to be immune to all attacks and ignored the 3 powerful demons. Fortunately, although the Titan took big steps, its speed was still not as fast as the demon who could fly. While the Titans had not yet reached the location of Diamo Castle, Diamo King simply gave up attacking the Titans and flew back to Diamo Castle to organize an evacuation. If I can't afford to offend them, can't I hide? Diamo King complained in his heart. The remaining Demon King was also a smart guy. When he found from a distance that the 3 Demon Kings were besieging the Titans, but could not cause any harm, he had already taken action. Therefore, when Diamo King flew back to the city in advance to explain the situation and order the residents of the Demon Castle to evacuate, everything went smoothly. In Diamo King's view, since the target of this giant was Diamo Castle, it would be fine to let it destroy Diamo Castle. Although he was unwilling, he had no choice but to do so in the face of such an irresistible enemy. Anyway, he had several other demon castles, and as long as people were still there, it would not be difficult to build a new Diamo Castle. At this time, the Titans had come to a place only 1 kilometer away from Diamo Castle. This distance was less than 10 steps for the Titans. However, the residents of Diamo Castle had almost evacuated. If this were in the S-Laser world, it would be impossible to evacuate such a large city so quickly. But this is the demon world, and the demons who are qualified to live in Dire Magic City are not weak. The remaining Demon King had already made preparations. After the great Demon King Dire ran back to inform them in advance, the demons left Dire Magic City very quickly in their own way. However, although the Great Demon King Dire and his companions found out that the destination of the Titan Giant was Dire Magic City after the Titan Giant took action, they did not understand the meaning of what the Titan Giant said. To be precise, the Titan Giant's target was not Dire Magic City, a dead thing, but the demons living in Dire Magic City. Therefore, when the demons in Dire Magic City were evacuating the city, the Titan Giant stopped one step away from Dire Magic City. His eyes flashed, and then he changed direction and stepped forward. When the Titan Giant stopped moving forward, the Great Demon King Dire, who was watching from afar, breathed a sigh of relief. Although he had prepared for the destruction of Dire Magic City, it would be better if it could not be destroyed by the giant. But the direction that the Titan Giant changed immediately made the faces of the Great Demon King Dire and other demons change drastically. The direction that the Titan Giant went was a hill where the demons who withdrew from the Dire Demon City gathered. At this time, even though the Great Demon King Dire didn't understand what the Titan Giant said before, he guessed it. Could it be that the target of this giant that descended from the sky was not the Dire Demon City, but the demons? The Great Demon King Dire felt cold all over. Although the speed of these demon kings was faster than the Titan Giant, other demons were not so fast. Even those legendary demon leaders were slower than the Titan Giant with long legs and fast running speed, and at most they had some advantages in flexibility. Although the Titan Giant did not resist the attack of the Demon King just now, at least the Demon King was not in danger and would not be listed as an attack target by the giant. But if all the ordinary Demon Kings were killed by the Titan Giant, what would be the point of the Demon King surviving? The entire demon world has only a few hundred epic creatures, including those flame creatures. The Great Demon King Dire couldn't imagine the scene when there were only a few hundred creatures left in such a huge demon world. No. This situation cannot happen. The Great Demon King Dire roared in his heart. The bloodthirsty, cruel, and domineering first Demon King suddenly felt a sense of responsibility in his heart. He wanted to protect those weak demons. This sudden noble mission was absolutely impossible for a Demon King like the Great Demon King Dire to appear in his heart. As a Demon King, low-level demons are their playthings or even slaves. The Great Demon King Dire never thought that one day he would do his best for those lowly and inferior demons. The ineffectiveness of various attacks before has already shown that with the ability of the Great Demon King Dire, it is impossible to hurt the Titan Giant. But now, the Great Demon King Dire has a new idea. Since I can't hurt you, why not change my mindset? I just need to restrict you so that you can't hurt the demons under my command, right? Demon King Dire gave 32 thumbs up for his sudden inspiration and immediately took action. Before, when he stopped the Titan from going to Dire Demon City, Demon King Dire used offensive spells such as Fire Wall and Storm Flame. But now, after changing his mind, he cast spells such as Ice Touch and Bone Prison that were more restrictive than offensive. The effect of Ice Touch was not great. The 10-meter-long ice blue tentacles looked like a hair compared to the huge body of the Titan. The freezing and deceleration effects attached to it were not effective at all, because the range of action was too small for the Titan. However, Bone Prison, Demon King Dire's signature spell, played a role. Because of the lofty sense of mission that suddenly emerged in his heart, Demon King Dire used all his strength when casting Bone Prison, although there is no such thing as sucking milk for demons. Therefore, the Bone Prison formed after the spell was cast was actually higher than the wall of Dire Demon City, a full 50 meters. The bone cage formed by countless thick skeletons climbed up to the calf of the Titan Giant. This was already extremely amazing. Under the sudden restraint of the bone cage, the Titan Giant even staggered and almost fell. However, after stabilizing his body, the Titan Giant seemed not to notice the restraint on his calf and continued to stride towards the place where the demons gathered. The Great Demon King Dire was shocked at first, and then he was delighted to find that, although the bone cage he cast did not completely restrain the Titan Giant's movements, it greatly slowed down its movement speed. And the demons that escaped from the Dire Demon City also began to flee in the opposite direction of the Titan Giant under the command of the Great Demon King Dire again. With the restraint of the bone cage, the Titan Giant could not catch up with them. The Great Demon King Dire still had hidden worries in his heart. There were so many meteors falling from the sky. Now he could slightly restrain this Titan Giant to allow ordinary demons to escape, but if there were more Titan giants in other directions, where could he escape to? In fact, the great demon king Dire was too confident. The other titans might not have posed a threat to the demons under his command, but the threat of the titan in front of him was imminent. The great demon king Dire thought that he had restricted the movement of the titan with the bone prison, but this was only a flash in the pan. When the titan found that he was getting farther and farther away from the target he needed to clear, his eyes quickly flashed. Then, the grass skirt made of many huge leaves around his waist suddenly emitted a green light, which flashed across the titan's legs. Then, the great demon king Dire was horrified to find that the bone prison he had cast with all his strength disappeared without a trace under this green light. Without the restraint of the bone prison, the titan naturally resumed its previous speed and ran unwaveringly in the direction where there were more fleeing demons. The great demon king Dire's mouth was full of bitterness, and he had no choice. Although the titan had only shown strong defensive capabilities, judging from its huge size, its offensive capabilities would not be weak. Facing this unstoppable titan, I'm afraid that most of the demons under my command will be lost. The second update is here. Thanks to the book friend Wendy Hay for the reward of 100 Nyangbi points, and thanks to the book friend Shyankwan Golden Eagle for the evaluation vote. Chapter 534 Differential Treatment. As the strongest demon king in the demon world, Dire was helpless against the titans, and could not even restrain their movements. From this, we can imagine what the demons in other places would be like when facing this unstoppable giant. Like Dire, demon kings from all over the world resisted the giants that fell from the sky, but to little avail. Many demon castles that did not have time to react were directly razed to the ground by the titans, and the demons in them naturally suffered heavy losses. For those demon kings, the titans would not take the initiative to attack, and would not even fight back when the demon kings attacked them, as if they would not fight back or curse back. But when facing ordinary demons, the titans were like messengers of destruction, slaughtering them firmly. Indeed, in the perception of the demon kings, there was no energy surging in the titans' bodies. But these 300-meter tall giants did not use energy attacks to deal with ordinary demons. Their powerful physical strength was enough to easily crush a group of ordinary demons. 300 meters high means that the foot of the titan giant is about 30 meters long. With such a large foot, it is easy to kill a large number of demons just by stepping on it. For a time, the land of Wuhan was filled with grief, and countless demons died tragically under the foot of the titan giant. In addition to the land of Wuhan, the other 3 places in the demon world also encountered the arrival of the titan giant without exception. In the lava kingdom, dozens of titan giants that descended almost all smashed through the unstable ground here and fell into the magma. Many flame creatures gathered around the large pit smashed by the titan giants in various places, observing the situation. A legendary flame creature exuding a tyrannical aura looked at the large pit that suddenly appeared outside the door of his tribe and couldn't help but go down to investigate. Although there was a lot of magma flowing in the pit, magma was like the relationship between water and fish to it, and it didn't have to worry about it at all. However, before this legendary flame creature could take any action, a huge hand suddenly stretched out from the pit and grasped it. Then, this huge hand, which had only one finger that was 7 or 8 meters long, quickly exerted force to clench. Puff, a sound like a flat tire sounded, and the powerful legendary flame creature was squeezed into a ball of sparks in the huge palm, and died directly in it. The flame creatures watching were all stunned. The flame creatures of this tribe did not participate in the previous war with the Neoan alliance, and had never seen any big scenes. A legendary flame creature, their tribal leader died so easily, which really made them feel unacceptable. This moment of days missed the best time to escape. From the deep pit, a head that looked extremely hideous to these flame creatures emerged from the magma, and then a huge body climbed up from the magma pit. Descend mission. Clear target limited. The giant who crawled out of the magma pit seemed to be unaware of the shock that his crushing of the legendary flame creature brought to the surrounding low-level flame creatures. He murmured, and then waved his huge arm to start sweeping the flame creatures around the pit. Although they are flesh and blood, the ubiquitous hot magma in the lava kingdom cannot cause any harm to the titans. However, the magma caves everywhere, and some extremely weak natural traps in the earth's crust make it easier for the titans who descended on the lava kingdom to move than those of their counterparts who descended on the abyss land, and the speed of clearing the flame creatures is also slower. With such a big change, the residents of the lava kingdom naturally thought of looking for their leader, the fire demon King Cosmo. However, when some flame creatures found the volcanic basin, they found that Cosmo had disappeared at some point, as early as half a month ago. When the sky changed, Illidan had returned to the Blood Mountain. After discovering that even their king was missing, the flame creatures were desperate. The titans are also irresistible to the flame creatures, except for the only 10 epic flame creatures who were judged as B-level creatures, and would not be attacked by the titans. The other flame creatures were under the threat of the titans. In general, because of the terrain, the situation of the fire creatures in the lava kingdom is a little better than that of the demons in the abyss land, but it is only a difference of 90 steps and 100 steps. In the ice purgatory, there are also titan giants descending. When countless meteors appeared in the sky, Zhao Kang, who was sitting on the frozen throne, discovered this scene that was rarely seen on Earth. However, he had discussed it with Yufei earlier, but he was not in the mood to appreciate the beautiful scenery, but was worried about those meteors. Later, when he found that giants appeared after the meteors landed, Zhao Kang couldn't help but have a sense of vision of the Hellfire Legion. However, from the appearance of a giant that descended not far from the frozen throne, they have nothing in common with the Hellfire, at least their size is much larger. Thinking of what he discussed with Yufei at the time, that the destruction of the demon world might come from external forces, Zhao Kang quickly linked these descending giants with the catastrophe. Zhao Kang, who had already assembled his troops, immediately led a large number of undead creatures in the main base under the frozen throne to swarm around the titan giant that had landed nearby. Unlike Yufei, who gathered all the blood elves on the Blood Mountain, Zhao Kang, who had multiple bases in the ice purgatory, could only assign an epic level replica hero to each base and order them in advance to fight to the death if something happened. At this time, looking at the 300-meter high giant, Zhao Kang felt uneasy. His main base was fine, with all the genuine heroes and many troops, so it should be no problem to deal with the giant. Are those branch bases in danger? When Zhao Kang came to a place not far from the landing of the giant under the protection of 4 genuine heroes of the undead, he also heard the words of the titan giant. Point completed. The second step is to start the cleanup mission. The mission target is limited to creatures below energy level B. Then, the titan giant's huge pair of eyes swept around, still standing still, and continued to talk to himself. Beep, beep. There are no target creatures nearby. The landing location is wrong. The landing location is wrong. Emergency measures are activated, automatically looking for biological settlements, assisting other cleaners to complete the task. Zhao Kang was confused, but he could still roughly understand what the titan giant meant. There are no creatures nearby? Nimmer, is this ignoring my undead army? Do such a pair of eyes eat air? Zhao Kang was extremely indignant and felt that he was despised by the titan giant. But then he suddenly understood that it seemed that the undead creatures of the undead race could not be counted as creatures, right? They are all dead spirits. However, the Dreadlord and the Crypt Lord among the heroes were not dead, so how could they be ignored by this giant? Thinking of what the titan giant said, the mission target is limited to creatures below energy level B. Zhao Kang was thoughtful. Ignoring the large number of undead creatures surrounding him, the titan giant took a step towards the south, seemingly looking for a place with creatures, assisting other cleaners to complete the task. Zhao Kang, who understood what was going on, quickly asked the undead creatures surrounding the titan to withdraw and make way for the titan. Although it seemed that the titan would not attack the undead creatures, in its eyes, the undead creatures should be dead things like mud and stone. If they stood in front of it, it would definitely step on them. Zhao Kang was relieved to find that the titan did not regard the undead creatures as enemies. His sub-bases should be safe. Since the titan did not provoke him, he would naturally not seek abuse. What about the catastrophe? It is really better to target others instead of himself. At this time, Zhao Kang's mind was crackling with calculations. The undead are all undead creatures, and the few heroes who are not undead creatures seem to be classified as energy level B in the giant's mouth, and will not be attacked. But the demons are different. They are all living creatures, and there are not many epic demon kings. In this way, these catastrophes that have come are opportunities for him, and Zhao Kang's eyes are firm. Looking at the meteor shower just now, there must be hundreds of titans descending from the demon world, and the demons of the Wuhan land will definitely not be able to resist. When most of the demons were slaughtered by the titans, the demon kings could not stir up any waves. The undead could occupy the Wuhan land without bloodshed, and it was too easy to complete the main task of occupying half of the territory of the demon world. Zhao Kang, who had made up his mind, immediately led his army of undead to follow the titans and headed south. Although the titans were too fast and quickly left them behind, Zhao Kang didn't care and continued to head south. This time I'm going to get rich. Zhao Kang's face was calm, but he was already happy in his heart. While Zhao Kang was happy in his heart, Yu Fei was not in a good mood. There were meteors falling everywhere in the demon world, and the abandoned land was of course no exception. However, the abandoned land only occupied 5% of the land in the demon world, and there were not many titans descending. But even these few titans still left Yu Fei helpless. Blood elves are not undead creatures, so they naturally belong to the category of living things. Therefore, the titans that descended on the abandoned land quickly came to the Blood Mountain and attacked the Blood Elves. Mana burn. A dark green beam flew out of Illidan's hand and shot at a titan. However, this invincible talent skill only left a shallow scar on the titan, and the titan's voice sounded again. Under attack, energy level B. The attack is determined to be non-threatening. Chapter 535 Countermeasures. Illidan's face was full of helplessness. It had been a long time since Illidan felt such a sense of defeat. Whether it was when he was facing the great demon king Piccolo, or when he was besieged by 4 demon kings, Illidan was as confident as ever. This confidence or arrogance reached a peak after he advanced to the mythic level. Even in front of the fire demon king who was stronger than himself, Illidan had the confidence to fight him and even win. However, Illidan's self-confidence was severely hit by the titan giant that fell from the sky. Whether it was a normal attack or the use of skills, Illidan's attack on the titan giant could only be exchanged for the same repeated words. Under attack, energy level B, determined to be non-threatening. Well, at the beginning, the giant would still look at Illidan, but after muttering something about not being a mission-limited target, he directly ignored Illidan. And this kind of ignoring brought a greater blow to Illidan. What is non-threatening? Illidan was furious when he heard the Titan's words again. Looking at the Blood Elves who were resisting in vain under the Titan's feet, Illidan was furious and chose to transform directly. On the top of the bloody mountain, Yu Fei was also very helpless. He naturally guessed that the giant that fell from the sky was the so-called catastrophe, the source of the destruction of the demon world. Looking at the formation of the meteor shower, every place in the demon world will be attacked by the giant. But when the catastrophe really came, Yu Fei found that he had no way to deal with it. Illidan was already the strongest warrior under his command, and even Illidan could not cause effective damage to the titan, let alone ordinary blood elf soldiers. But in this helpless situation, Yu Fei also thought of other places. Even Illidan, a mythical strongman, was helpless with the titan. So wouldn't the local demon king of the demon world have no hope? The demon world will soon become a dead place. Yu Fei does not have any epic level subordinates in the demon world, so he does not know what level the epic level strongman will be classified into by the titan giant, and whether they will be attacked. Anyway, as far as the blood elves are concerned, from the elite sword dancers with strength of silver and gold to the few blood rage knights and protection knights who already have legendary strength, they will be attacked by the titan giant without exception, and all of them will be killed in one blow. Batches of blood elf soldiers turned into meat paste under the feet of the titan giant, and Yu Fei was very distressed. It is still good now. Only this giant that landed not far from the Blood Mountain came to attack. When the giants that landed in other places in the abandoned land also rushed over, the blood elves will probably be exterminated soon. Illidan has already used the demon transformation, but Yu Fei is not optimistic about the outcome of the battle. Judging from the few words said by the titan giant, Illidan has been classified as a creature of energy level B, and any attack that does not exceed level B is ineffective against the titan giant. Even Illidan himself knew that, as long as he had not broken through the mythical level, he would not be able to truly threaten the giant in front of him. He had the most say in this regard, having attacked the Titan many times. However, even knowing this, Illidan still launched the demon realm, wanting to do his best. This was the same as the sense of responsibility that the great demon King Dire had inexplicably at the time. Even if he was defeated, he had to fulfill his responsibilities. But no one expected that Illidan's move, which he himself thought was futile, would actually work. After casting the demon realm, Illidan naturally habitually wrapped the Titan in the realm. Although the Titan was huge and 300 meters high, far exceeding the height of the demon realm under normal circumstances, after Illidan made some adjustments to the demon realm, he still completely included it in the demon realm. Before Illidan in the realm launched an attack on the Titan strangely stopped all actions. Beep, beep, error, error. No mission targets below energy level B have been scanned. Emergency measures activated. Automatic search as the Titan was about to attack the barrier of the demon realm. However, the huge fist had been raised, but it never swung down. Error. Cannot attack targets other than those specified in the mission. Beep. Illidan was stunned. What was going on? He was just about to have a big fight, but why did this Titan, who was included in the demon realm, seem to have crashed and completely stopped moving? What Illidan could see and hear, Yufei would naturally know. When he found that the Titan, who was included in the demon realm, stopped moving after saying the above two sentences, Yufei was surprised and quickly began to analyze. Previously, the Titan had completely ignored Illidan's attacks and never fought back. According to the words that occasionally popped out of the Titan's mouth, it seemed that creatures that were not the so-called mission targets would not be attacked. And Illidan, obviously, was an on-mission restricted target. The demon realm is actually equivalent to Illidan. Attacking the demon realm's barrier is equivalent to attacking Illidan. This is not allowed by the Titan's judgment. More importantly, the demon realm has the function of isolating the inside and outside. After the Titan was covered in the demon realm, he could not detect the existence of the Blood Elves, the mission target, because of the isolation of the realm. Therefore, it fell into a state similar to a crash. However, although Illidan covered the Titan in the demon realm and temporarily solved the problem of the Blood Elf soldiers being slaughtered, it was only temporary. Not to mention the problem of the duration of the demon realm. The other Titans running from a distance that can be seen with the naked eye are a big trouble. Although Illidan can adjust the shape of the demon realm to a limited extent, the overall volume that it can cover isn't changed. The Titan's body is too large. Even the mountain giant can't reach the Titan's knees. Even if Illidan fully deploys the demon realm, he can only seal 3 Titans in it at most. And no matter how you count, the Titans who are about to arrive at the Blood Mountain will be far more than 3. No. We must come up with a solution as soon as possible. Countless thoughts raced through Yufei's mind, trying to come up with a way to preserve the Blood Elf troops before the Titans in the distance arrived at Scarlet Mountain. Although the existence of the Titans would certainly not threaten the Sunwell where Yufei's soul resided, if they were allowed to act, I'm afraid no Blood Elf would survive. Even the less than 100 Night Elves who came across the border with Illidan would be killed by the Titans along with the Blood Elves. Yufei had finally accumulated these hundreds of thousands of Blood Elves, and he really couldn't bear to give up. If the Blood Elves were completely lost, even if he finally got the Heart of Darkness and Illidan successfully returned to the world of Slays, Yufei would feel very unsatisfied. Not to mention, under the inspiration of this pursuit of perfection, Yufei really came up with a solution before the other Titans arrived at Scarlet Mountain. However, I don't know if this solution worked. After just a moment of hesitation, Yufei made a decision. Anyway, there was no way to deal with the Titans, so he just tried his best. The sun well on the top of the bloody mountain soon changed under Yufei's control. The light column that originally penetrated the sky and earth and shot out from the sun well suddenly seemed to collapse and turned into countless light spots pouring down. Soon, the light column formed a dome in this change, completely covering the bloody mountain. The method that Yufei thought of was very simple, which was to create a barrier similar to the demon realm, to hide the Blood Elves from the perception of the Titans. In Yufei's opinion, those Titans should use energy intensity to identify whether they are strong or weak, that is, whether they are mission targets. The energy of the Sun Well is enough to sustain the magicians of the entire Blood Elf clan to cast spells, and its energy intensity and quantity can be imagined. Now what he is doing is to use the energy of the Sun Well to wrap up the Blood Elves so that the Titans mistakenly believe that the Bloody Mountain is a huge non-mission limited target. Thanks to the book friend Kan Meng Shahan for the magic cake. Chapter 536. Let's watch the meteor shower again. Yufei let out a long breath as he watched the dozen Titans going away. Fortunately, the method he thought of finally worked. The dome formed by the energy of the Sun Well had the same effect as the Demon Realm, and was judged by the Titans as an on-mission limited target, so they left. The Titan in Illidan's Demon Realm had been released long ago, and according to the so-called emergency measures, he and other Titans headed east to complete the so-called cleanup task. But although the crisis was temporarily resolved, Yufei's mood did not relax much. Unlike the natives of the demon world, Yufei could roughly understand what the Titans said. Whether it was from the descending mission and cleanup mission spoken by the Titans, or from the various judgments and emergency measures that seemed like robots, it can be seen that the Titans were not the real source of the catastrophe. To put it more clearly, the Titans have someone behind them. According to the situation of the demon world's natural disasters, it should be someone above. The main messenger who controlled the Titans behind the scenes was the real culprit of the upcoming destruction of the demon world. Yufei noticed that the first words the Titans said after landing included planet cleaner, plane cleaner and some numbers. From this information, Yufei analyzed that the organization behind the Titan must be very tight. Moreover, it seems that this is not the first time they have done such a thing of destroying a world. Otherwise there would not be the term cleaner and detailed formations. The Titan has dealt with it now, but if the mastermind behind the scenes has new actions, how should it be dealt with? This idea made Yufei feel extremely uneasy. If he did not have to persist and get the Heart of Darkness, Yufei even wanted to return to the world of Esraz. That's right, now Yufei has found a way to return to the world of Esraz. The Sunwell was originally formed by his soul plus the Sunstone, and then based on a holy war altar originally on the Bloody Mountain. The so-called Holy War Altar itself is the medium for the demons to cross the border to the world of Esraz to burn, kill and loot, and has the ability to teleport within a specific time period. Although it is not yet the exact time for the Holy War in the demon world, which takes place once every 5,000 years, the teleportation ability of the Holy War Altar is still there, but it is a castrated version. This castrated teleportation ability can at most teleport the creatures in the demon world to the space layer between the S-laser world and the demon world, which is the place where Yufei transferred when he came to the demon world. If it is a demon, because there are no coordinates or a large number of creatures calling them in the S-laser world, they will be trapped if they just enter the space layer. But Yufei is different. There are a large number of Night Elves in the S-laser world. Even before entering the space layer, Yufei felt the call of the Night Elves some time ago, as if they had encountered some problems. If he entered the space layer, such a strong call would definitely break the space barrier, allowing Yufei to carry the creatures of the demon world back to the S-laser world. However, there is only one such opportunity. Yufei can only silently wait for the final destruction of the demon world, and then do his best to obtain the Heart of Darkness, and finally return to the S-laser world. If it was possible to teleport multiple times, Yufei would have teleported the Blood Elf troops back to the world of Esraz. 3 days passed. Yufei had been maintaining the dome composed of the energy radiated by the Sun Well. Although the Titans had left the Scarlet Mountain, who knew if they found that there were still a large number of mission targets here, would they turn back? And Illidan was sent by Yufei to investigate the situation in an area close to the abandoned land. Anyway, he would not be attacked by the Titans, and it was useless to stay in the Scarlet Mountain. After reaching the mythical level, Illidan's flying speed was very fast. In just 3 days, he had already traveled back and forth in the central region of the abyss. However, he could not see even one demon city as prosperous as before. Many demon cities, together with the demons in them, turned into huge pits. Obviously, the Titans' attack methods are not limited to punching and stepping. Even the Dire Demon City, which was originally the most prosperous in the central region, Illidan also visited it during these 3 days. However, not a single demon was left in the dire demon city, which had already become a ghost town. It was by chance that Illidan discovered the traces of the great demon king Dire. This powerful demon king, known as the #1 demon king in the demon world, now looked very embarrassed. This was caused by the tens of thousands of demons that he had taken to escape. When Illidan met the great demon king Dire, he was being chased by a titan. If it weren't for the bone prison that the great demon king Dire often released, which could temporarily delay the movement of the titan, the tens of thousands of demons that he was protecting would have been caught up long ago. Seeing that the great demon king Dire was obviously about to enter a state of energy overdraft, Yufei couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He didn't expect that this guy was still quite responsible in the face of a storm. It's a pity that Yufei and Illidan couldn't do anything about the titan. Even if they appreciated the current actions of the great demon king Dire, they couldn't help it. If the great demon king Dire had domain type skills, then it might be easier. However, Yufei had only seen this rare ability in the demon world on the Flame Demon Emperor, and the great demon king Dire naturally couldn't have it. Shaking his head, Illidan passed by from a distance, not caring about the great demon lord Dire. He could imagine that the final outcome of this team was that the great demon lord Dire would not have the strength to cast the bone prison again, and the tens of thousands of demons would still be caught up and killed by the titans. In the past 3 days, the tens of thousands of demons under the protection of the great demon lord Dire were the only team Illidan had seen. Perhaps other demon kings had also made the same move as the great demon lord Dire, but they were probably not strong enough and had been killed by the titans. During the 3 days that Illidan was inspecting the situation, he also saw many demon kings. This made Yufei come to a conclusion that in the judgment of the titans, the epic and mythical levels belonged to the B energy level. The central region was already desolate, and I guess other places in the demon world were no exception. I just didn't know how Zalkang was. Yufei suddenly had a haze in his heart. How could he forget that fellow villager? The undead didn't seem to have a mythical powerhouse like Illidan, so they should be more helpless in the face of the titans, right? After receiving Yufei's order, Illidan immediately flew north, wanting to go to the ice purgatory to investigate the situation of the undead. Although Yufei could imagine that if the titans really launched a massacre against the undead, there would probably be only a few heroes left in the undead, but if he didn't take a look, he would not feel at ease. However, Illidan was stunned not far from the northern wilderness of the Wuoan land. The demon city in front of him was already filled with undead creatures, but no titan came here to attack. Yufei on the top of the Blood Mountain couldn't believe Illidan's eyes. The undead still have such treatment? When the entire demon world suffered a catastrophe, countless demons were slaughtered by the titans, and even the blood elves could only shrink in the Blood Mountain. The undead were able to expand unscrupulously. This is really unfair. Yufei was indignant. As smart as he was, he naturally quickly thought of why the undead would not be attacked by the titans. It was nothing more than the rigid task target judgment. However, despite being angry, Yufei was still very happy to find that the undead were not hit, because this meant that Zalkang was not in danger. Illidan also quietly retreated to Scarlet Mountain. Since he had already investigated the general situation of the demon world, all he had to do was wait for the final destruction. While Yufei was waiting silently, a spectacular meteor shower appeared in the sky that was still shrouded in shadows. The last chapter number was wrong. It should be chapter 527, but it was chapter 257. I'm very sorry! Exclamation mark. Chapter 537 Hunter. 5 days after the so-called cleaners, the titans, descended, the second wave of meteor showers arrived as expected. However, compared to the hundreds of titans in the first wave, there were only 100 meteors descending this time. Unlike before, the distribution of these meteors was no longer roughly evenly distributed in the demon world like when the titans descended. For example, here in the abandoned land, only 2 meteors fell, and both landed at the foot of the bloody mountain. This time, Yufei had experience. After estimating the landing point of the meteor, he sent Illidan there in advance to greet it. Boom. Unlike when the titans landed, this time's meteor was obviously not as big as the titans, but it made a huge roar when it landed. When the smoke and dust stirred up by the meteor gradually dissipated, the thing that appeared in front of Illidan stunned Yuffie. Is this a robot? This is a robot. In the small pit in front of Illidan, a robot with a shape somewhat similar to Gundam appeared, and a line of words was engraved on the chest armor of this robot. Hunter B-2-003 Squadron Robot 0027 Hunter? Is this the same series as the Titan who called himself the Cleaner? But in terms of appearance, there is no similarity at all. And it turns out that it is a robot, not a robot. Is there any difference between the two? Yuffie was busy complaining that he had not issued an order, so Illidan did not act rashly. However, the Hunter Robot 0027 launched a swift attack on Illidan after a flash of red light on its steel head. A B6 level life form has been discovered, and the hunting mission has begun. Illidan was startled. This seemingly bloated robot made of steel actually moved very quickly. Its two steel arms came to both sides of Illidan in the blink of an eye, and it was about to close together to hug Illidan. Unfortunately, Illidan only shook his body slightly, and the two steel arms of the mechanical man stirred up a ripple, and collided with each other, as if hugging the air. This was Illidan's dodge skill taking effect. Mana burn. The mechanical man had already launched an attack to show the identity of the enemy, so Illidan would not be soft-hearted and immediately returned a mana burn. However, the dark green ray hit the mechanical man's body, but it didn't even leave a small dent. You know, when facing the Titan giant, although mana burn could not cause effective damage to it, it could still hit a small scar. Well, there is only one possibility for mana burn to be ineffective. There is no energy in this mechanical man. But this is impossible. If there is no energy, how can this mechanical man move? Looking at the mechanical man's shell, that still shone a little under the gloomy sky, Illidan was thoughtful. It seems that the mechanical man's armor is not just as simple as steel. Since the skill didn't work, Illidan gave up the idea of continuing to test it, and took the initiative to meet it, and start a melee. Demon hunters don't rely on skills to survive, but rely more on close combat. Even if the opponent is a steel monster, there is nothing to be afraid of. Keng, the Azimuth warblade chopped on the joint of the warframe's shoulder, making a crisp sound of metal clashing. However, the seemingly fragile joint that Illidan deliberately chose did not leave a trace under the slash of the Azimuth warblade. Illidan was a little unhappy, but he was not surprised. The Titan giant that came before was still a flesh and blood body, and the Azimuth warblade could not cause any damage. Now this is a hunter with a body of steel. The warframe ignores his attacks, and he has become accustomed to it. Although Illidan cannot cause damage to the warframe can't do anything to Illidan. This steel lump's body looks bloated, but it is very flexible and agile in action, far beyond the average demon king. But in front of Illidan, a mythical agile hero and his magical dodge, this flexibility pales in comparison. Damn. Illidan chopped the warblade in his hand at various positions on the body of the mechanical man. He wanted to test whether there were any weaknesses in the mechanical man's armor. But the result of the test was not optimistic. This mechanical man was even harder than a turtle, and even a joint could not be broken. Relying on his extremely high agility and dodge skills, Illidan sneaked into the arms of the mechanical man, trying to make a move in the gaps between the mechanical man's abdomen and leg armor to paralyze its ability to move. But just when Illidan raised his warblade, there was a swish sound, and a hole suddenly appeared in the mechanical man's abdomen. Then a huge net with a metallic luster popped out of the hole, covering Illidan's head and face. Illidan was startled. This time the dodge skill did not work, and he was actually caught in the net. So this is what the hunter meant. Yuffie suddenly realized and understood a lot of things at once. I'm afraid no one would destroy a world for no reason, except for a powerful psychopath. However, a lunatic couldn't come up with such a detailed number. Yuffie already knew why the Titans and the main messenger behind the current mechanical man appeared, and were predicted to be destroyed. Perhaps, the main messenger behind the scenes was a force wandering in various worlds. The so-called cleaners would kill all the weak in the worlds, selected to be conquered or destroyed, leaving only the strong who met a certain standard. The demon world might be limited to Class B. When the cleaners have almost completed their tasks, the mysterious force will send out hunters such as mechanical men to capture the remaining strong men. As for whether they will be used for experiments after being captured, or whether they will be subdued and become cleaners and hunters in other worlds, it is still unknown. Obviously, Illidan has now become the prey, to be captured by the hunter. Facing the huge net covering his head, Illidan did not panic, but his heart was full of anger. When did the demon hunter actually become the prey of others? Even if it is a mechanical man, this is a great shame. With a roar, Illidan transformed directly. The giant net emitting a metallic luster did not break at all under the burning of the sacrificial flames around Illidan, but after Illidan transformed into a demon, he turned into a demonic breath and easily escaped. Illidan, who was filled with anger, did not stop his movements. All the demonic breaths in the demon domain instantly turned into countless swords, spears, and halberds and flew towards the mechanical man. This was the first time that Illidan used the demon domain to deal with only an individual enemy. When dealing with the great demon king Piccolo before, there were also many other demons in the demon domain. Although the time that the demon domain can last will be greatly shortened if dealing with an enemy alone without other demons, the intensity of the attacks suffered by the enemy can be imagined. Facing the attacks of various weapons transformed by the demonic breath, the mechanical man's chest suddenly cracked, and a blue energy overflowed from it, and soon turned into a small spherical energy shield. Obviously, the mechanical man's armor alone could not withstand the attack of the demonic breath, so it still used energy form defense. The blue energy shield was indeed solid. The weapons transformed by the demonic aura poured down on it like rain, but all of them broke swords and guns, and returned in vain. Illidan's mind moved. The reason why the mana burning was ineffective before was because the outer armor of the mechanical man isolated the internal energy, but now whoosh another mana burning shot out, but this time it was not ineffective like before. The dark green ray directly opened a big hole in the mechanical man's energy shield and shot into the mechanical man's chest armor that had been split open. The demonic aura wandering around the mechanical man suddenly swarmed in from the big hole, opened by the mana burning ray like sharks smelling blood, and began to attack the mechanical man's body. Soon, the two parts of the mechanical man's head that seemed to be eyes began to flash red light, flickering. After another wave of demonic aura flowed into the mechanical man's body through the opening of the chest armor, there was a bang, and the mechanical man exploded in the demon domain. Chapter 538 Mysterious Voice. Since one hunter can be eliminated, the second one is naturally no problem. The other hunter who happened to descend on the abandoned land arrived at the Blood Mountain before Illidan's demon transformation lasted, so he was easily dealt with. Yufei even had a sense of unreality in his heart. How come this hunter used to capture strong people is not as strong as the cleaner? At least Illidan cannot pose a threat to the cleaner, but he can kill the hunter. In fact, Yufei's comparison is wrong. The cleaner mainly faces a large number of low-level enemies, and what is needed is a strong defense that can ignore multiple attacks and a large number of killing capabilities. In fact, although Illidan cannot threaten the cleaner's attack cannot cause harm to Illidan. Moreover, the speed of the cleaner is only a little faster than the legendary level. As long as it is an epic level strongman, it can easily get rid of the cleaner. The hunter is different. It faces a single strongman. Ordinary physical attacks can't do anything to the hunter's armor, and energy attacks will be defended by the energy column. Only Illidan's burning of mana was a blessing in disguise, opening a path for the demonic aura to break through, so that the hunters could be easily dealt with. Just like the great demon king Dire, he had already become a prisoner at this time. This sturdy demon king was now slumped in a tightening giant net and was dragged into the air by a robot with Hunter B-2-001 Team Robot 0004 engraved on his chest armor. At the same time, the hunters who descended on other places also gained something. The demon kings who were once powerful were now trapped in the net bag, like a pheasant caught by a hunter. Even the flame creatures in the lava kingdom were trapped by energy shields and taken to the sky together. At this time, Illidan's demon transformation time limit finally arrived, and the demon domain was also lifted. The two mechanical men that had been blown into countless parts in the demon realm, each of them had a piece of wreckage that suddenly emitted a blazing white light, which flashed in front of Illidan's eyes and disappeared into the gloomy sky. The speed of this light was so fast that even Illidan, a mythical agile hero, could not react. Yufei, who saw this scene from Illidan's perspective, cried out in his heart, "It's broken." Obviously, the light must be similar to the black box left after a plane crash on Earth. However, the black box can only be found and read by people, but this mechanical man can automatically convey some information after being damaged. Although he did not see it with his own eyes, Yufei could guess that the hunters who came in other places must have a rich harvest. If Illidan did not open the demon realm, it would be difficult to defeat the mechanical man. Those epic demon kings would definitely not be the opponents of the mechanical man. Yufei's guess was correct. The two rays of light shot into the sky from the mechanical man's wreckage did convey some information. In less than a second, these two rays of light crossed a long distance and came to a mysterious place. HMM. 2 B-class hunters were killed. Is there any A-class life in this world? A sacred and grand voice sounded, with a hint of doubt. Then the two rays of light scattered into two light spots, and the information in them was also revealed. Well, it turned out to be a B6 class life, but this B6 class life was able to kill 2 B-class hunters. Although it is not a living B1 type, it is also very good. The image of Illidan killing 2 mechanical men evolved in the void, but the domain skills that few strong people possessed did not cause any fluctuations in the mysterious voice. It just admired Illidan's ability to kill 2B2 mechanical men. But what's the matter with the large number of life forms that are obviously not B-class? Is there a problem with the cleaning team? No, although those titans are smart, because they were created by me, it is impossible for them not to complete the cleaning task. In the image, revealed by the mechanical man's black box, the mysterious voice noticed the bloody mountain behind Illidan and the large number of blood elves in it. The dome formed by Yufei using the energy of the sun well could not completely block the detection of the mysterious voice. Interesting. I didn't expect that in this plane of the chaotic starfield. In addition to being able to find the tribesmen who fill my abyss and the underworld, there seems to be an additional gain. I have to investigate it myself. The mysterious voice fell silent after saying this. On the top of the bloody mountain in the demon world, less than half a minute after the 2 mechanical man wreckages shot out the light, Yufei was still worried that the original killing of the 2 hunters might be discovered when he suddenly found that all his perceptions were blocked. Never before has Yufei's perception been restricted to a small area of the sun well, like it is now. In the past, even when crossing the boundary, Yufei could vaguely sense the existence of the Night Elves. But now, he can't feel the hundreds of thousands of blood elves connected to his spirit, or even Illidan who is not far away. Before he had time to be afraid, a voice sounded in Yufei's mind. HMM. So that's how it is. No wonder those stupid titans didn't clean up these creatures. Hearing the voice, Yufei was no longer panicked. It turned out that the isolation of perception was man-made, not his own subconscious. The Night Elves and Blood Elves were out of his control. This was really great. Who are you? Yufei asked this question with trepidation. However, he didn't get an answer for a long time, until he couldn't help but want to ask again. The mysterious voice sounded again. Well, it turns out to be such an existence. The soul and an energy well are combined together. No, this is not the main soul. Yufei only felt a cold force invading his soul, and then it was transmitted to the main body of the ancient tree at an indescribable speed. Under the influence of this force, Yufei's main consciousness returned to the main body in an instant, but soon returned to the sun well under the influence of that force. It's actually in a similar state to mine. Although it's relatively crude, it's true. That poor planet. The tone of the mysterious voice became full of emotion, but it was barely audible at the end. No matter how hard Yufei concentrated, he couldn't hear what the mysterious voice said. Then, Yufei felt that all his perceptions had returned. Suddenly, he felt that the sky was so blue, the grass was so green, and Illidan's face covered with a mask also looked a little handsome. Bah. It's all an illusion. How can there be blue sky and green grass in the demon world? Yufei reacted and realized that the mysterious person who isolated his perception might have left. If I guessed correctly, those cleaners and hunters might have been sent by the mysterious voice that just appeared in his mind. The reason why the mysterious voice appeared must be related to the 2 mechanical men killed by Illidan. But the mysterious voice kept talking to itself and had no intention of communicating with Yufei at all, so Yufei really couldn't analyze more. But one thing is certain, the mysterious voice seems to have let Yufei go. Otherwise, since it can isolate Yufei's perception and even trace back to the ancient tree, it can also kill Yufei directly. Yufei has never felt this kind of life being directly threatened. On Earth, it was a society ruled by law, and Yufei, an ordinary person, would definitely not be exposed to fighting and killing. After crossing over, relying on the strength of the Night Elves, no one has ever been able to threaten his body. But this time, he found that he was not strong enough. Faintly, Yufei guessed in his heart that the mysterious voice just now might be of the same level or even the same nature as the voice that caused him to cross over. There are too many problems in the middle, and Yufei, who is seriously lacking in information, cannot make more judgments. Yufei, who had just recovered his spirit, suddenly felt that the entire Blood Mountain began to shake. No, not only the Blood Mountain, the entire demon world is shaking, as if a super large earthquake has occurred. Could it be that destruction has come? Chapter 539 Heart of Darkness. This is the end of the world. Looking at the sudden ground crack not far from the bloody mountain and the tornado that connected the sky and the ground in the distance, Yufei gave a positive answer. Although he didn't know how this disaster, which should obviously be formed naturally, was created, Yufei knew that it was definitely the means of the mysterious voice. Sure enough, after slaughtering the ordinary creatures of the demon world and capturing the epic strongman, is the world destroyed? Fortunately, for some reason, although the bloody mountain was shaking, there was no major change. Perhaps it was because Yufei had been covering the bloody mountain with the dome formed by the energy of the sun. Well, there was not even a crack on the bloody mountain. Yufei could imagine that various places in the demon world were probably shrouded in various disasters, especially places with weak crusts like the lava kingdom, which should have become a magma ocean long ago. However, such a disaster would not bring any casualties. After the cleaners and hunters completed their tasks, there were only two forces left in the demon world, the Blood Elves and the Undead. The local demons were either killed or captured. Although Yufei was a little nervous at this time, he was not afraid. Since the mysterious voice could isolate his consciousness and trace it back to the body, it must have the ability to erase himself, but it did not do so. This means that the mysterious voice may not have any ill will towards him, and the destruction of the demon world should not affect the Blood Elves. But, I don't know how Zhao Kang is now. Zhao Kang's condition is very bad at this time. Because the undead are all undead creatures, the first wave of cleaners did not attack any unit of the undead, and Zhao Kang took this opportunity to expand the territory of the undead. Not only did he reoccupy the northern wilderness territory that he had previously abandoned in order to deal with the catastrophe, he also fought all the way to some places in the west and central regions within 5 days before the arrival of the hunter. Of course, this is all the credit of the Titan Giant. It is too easy to just occupy the unmanned demon city. Even the arrival of the hunter did not affect the expansion of the undead, because those mechanical people still did not target the undead, but instead captured all the bear demon kings who occasionally appeared to resist the undead. It was as if this catastrophe was used to help the undead expand their strength. Could this be the meaning of the prophecy that Yufei told him? The dead will be sublimated. Zhao Kang thought happily. At this rate, the main task of occupying half of the territory of the demon world will be completed soon, and the Black Castle will be built. It's a pity that Zhao Kang was too happy too early. The disregard of the cleaners and hunters does not mean that the undead are safe. On the contrary, it is a kind of attention. No one knows that the reason why the mysterious voice came to the demon world and destroyed the world is actually for the undead. When natural disasters raged in various parts of the demon world, the undead were naturally affected. But the strange thing is that the natural disasters that affected the undead were all tornadoes. A large number of undead creatures were swept up by the tornado and disappeared. Through the statistics panel of the undead system, Zhao Kang knew that these soldiers and even heroes swept away by the tornado did not die. But where did they go? Finally, even Zhao Kang himself was swept into the tornado, and the genuine Death Knight Arthas and other heroes who were guarding him were not spared, and were swept away by the tornado. In this way, in the huge demon world, only the Blood Mountain had 400,000 to 500,000 Blood Elves, and other places were already dead. Although the Blood Elves were transformed or trained by Eupheny through the military training building, they had at least reached the elite level and had more or less some wisdom. In particular, the units transformed from the original Blood Elves in the demon world had wisdom that was almost the same as that of heroes. Therefore, when they saw the devastating situation outside the Blood Mountain, they would also feel fear. The shield formed by Eupheny with the energy of the sun well became the last sustenance and hope of the Blood Elves. This scene of redemption at the end of the world also made all the Blood Elves believe in Eupheny more deeply. When all kinds of disasters reached a peak, the demon world, which was not perfect in the first place, finally could not withstand such destruction. In Eupheny's perception, a wonderful and magnificent scene appeared. Just like a glass house being shattered, the sky and land of the demon world were filled with crystal clear space fragments. Among these scattered space fragments, there were space cracks that condensed the deepest black. The soil and magma of the demon world quickly flowed away along these space cracks, and it was unknown where they went, or they were directly annihilated. Originally, with Eupheny's mental power, he could only radiate his god's perspective to a distance of 500 kilometers around the Blood Mountain. But in this situation, where space was shattered, the distance seemed to disappear, and Eupheny saw the entire shattered demon world. Of course, he also found a large piece of black stone that appeared in the middle area of the original demon world with a large amount of space fragments. Heart of Darkness. Eupheny's mind was shocked. This was the target he came to the demon world and spent so much time on. Although the Blood Mountain was far away from the middle area, there was no concept of distance in the current situation of space shattering. Illidan turned into a demon without hesitation and used the demon domain, that also had some spatial attributes, to resist the ubiquitous spatial cracks, and flew towards the Heart of Darkness in the void. But Illidan failed to achieve his goal. The Heart of Darkness, which was like a large black stone, ignored the spatial cracks and scattered spatial fragments as soon as it appeared, and flew directly into the sky, disappearing without a trace. Illidan was stunned, and Eupheny was also stunned. After so much effort, did he still fail to get the Heart of Darkness? Yes, as the core of a world, the Heart of Darkness must have many powerful effects. The mysterious voice, that was so powerful that it was beyond his understanding, must have destroyed the demon world for the Heart of Darkness. Although he had no body, Eupheny still felt bitter in his mouth. He didn't even have the mood to think about why Zhao Kang and his undead tribe disappeared in the fragmented space, until a ding sounded. Is there a sound when the space is broken? Eupheny cheered up and looked at the place where the sound came from. A fist-sized black stone hit the barrier of Illidan's demon domain, making the same ding sound. Heart of Darkness. Eupheny was shocked, followed by ecstasy and confusion. Although the Heart of Darkness was large, Eupheny only needed a fist-sized piece, because the other parts that made up the Heart of Eternity were also only this big. But why did the mysterious voice take care of him so much and give him such a piece after obtaining the Heart of Darkness? Eupheny didn't know if the mysterious voice had anything to do with him, but it read his memory and knew that he needed the Heart of Darkness, so he couldn't help but be vigilant. Such a mindless kindness really made people suspicious. Eupheny knew that he shouldn't have such a feeling of being ungrateful, but the means and behavior of the mysterious voice to read the memory were really disgusting. Illidan grabbed the Heart of Darkness, and the demon flapped its wings and flew back to the Bloody Mountain. The demon world had been completely shattered, but the Bloody Mountain stood in the void. Looking at the Heart of Darkness that Illidan offered in front of the sun well, Eupheny was filled with emotion, but in the end he could only sigh. Forget it, don't think too much. After all, the ending is still good. The Heart of Darkness was obtained, and the Blood Elves also saved most of it. Bringing it back to the world of Esraz will be a good fighting force. Next, let's go back to the long-lost world of Esraz. The fragmentation of space made Eupheny's cross-border action very smooth. Although the number of Blood Elves has reached more than 400,000, they still successfully entered the interlayer space between the two worlds. The call of the Night Elves has not stopped, which added a hint of worry to Eupheny's heart. What on earth did they encounter? With this question, Eupheny ordered Illidan and the Blood Elves to break the space barrier between the interlayer space and the world of Esraz. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540, Orc Invasion. Esley's World, Whispering Wind Forest. Tyrande, who had been sitting in the capital of the Dark Knight Empire, now appeared here, and Avril, the Dark Knight Sentinel who was originally ordered to take charge of the Whispering Wind Forest, was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, Tyrande, who was frowning and thinking about something, turned in a different direction, and focused her eyes on the south. Even the white tiger lying beside her seemed to have discovered something, raised its huge head, and looked to the south with Tyrande. Did you feel it too? Tyrande didn't look at the white tiger, but was obviously talking to it. There was also a hint of excitement in the originally cold voice like the moon. Father God. It's the Father God who is back. The Tree of Life, that had been standing quietly behind Tyrande, began to move with the sound of Tyrande's voice. Tyrande immediately showed respect, and turned to the Tree of Life and knelt down. Welcome back, Father God. Ahem. Euphony opened his eyes, and saw that his moon priestess was exposed. Did Tyrande see that I haven't been back for so long, and send me some benefits? Euphony was thinking wildly in his mind, but his reaction on the surface was very calm. Tyrande, I didn't expect you to stay here all the time. Get up quickly. Tyrande stood up as ordered, but still lowered her head, and was a little afraid to look at Euphony. Euphony was puzzled. How could Tyrande, a hero as elegant and noble as a goddess, make such a gesture? Thinking of the fact that he could also feel the strong call of the Night Elves in the demon world in the past few months, Euphony had an ominous premonition in his heart. By the way, where is Avril? Shouldn't Tyrande be in charge of the overall situation in the Dark Knight capital? Why did she come to the Wind Whispering Forest? In an instant, Euphony thought of various possibilities such as conspiracy, betrayal, power struggle, and even palace fighting. Ahem. Bah. I must have thought too much. Euphony suddenly relaxed his mind. The Night Elves were all created and summoned by him. Avril and his spiritual connection had always been unimpeded. How could she betray him? The culprit of the destruction of the demon world must be the mysterious voice. The appearance and behavior of the mysterious voice disturbed his mind, which gave rise to such a ridiculous idea. Euphony laughed at himself, and then directly switched his perspective to Avril. What happened? Just look and you will know. Of course, before that, Euphony also gave orders to Tyrande to settle the Blood Elves who crossed the border to the world of Esley. The hundreds of thousands of Blood Elves are now in the Warcraft mountains, where Euphony went to the demon world, and they are restrained by Illidan. As for the Heart of Darkness, it is naturally held by Illidan. But now Euphony is not in a hurry to merge the Heart of Eternity and upgrade the main body. The Night Elves seem to have undergone a major change. When the main body is upgraded, it cannot perceive the external situation. It must deal with things before advancing. As soon as the perspective was switched to Avril, Euphony was shocked. Avril is now in the Dwarf Hills west of the Wind Whispering Forest. But this place is no longer or not entirely the territory of the dwarves. A large number of creatures with animal heads and human bodies, or directly in the form of beasts with only a few human features, occupy this place. Avril is in a battlefield between such creatures and the Night Elves. Euphony remembered that before he went to the demon world, the hill dwarves had already joined the Night Elves. The last time Euphony returned to the world of Esley in consciousness was relatively short. He just dealt with the matter of the undead natural disaster, and did not pay much attention to the situation of this vassal race. But this is also the strongest of the three branches of the dwarves. How could those orcs easily bully them into the dwarf hills? Euphony recognized that those creatures with animal heads and human bodies, or in the form of beasts, were the orcs of the world of Esley. When Euphony first learned about the overall situation of the continent of Esley from the dwarf Gargant, he showed interest in the orcs of Esley. But after discovering that the orcs in Esley were the same as the orcs in the otherworldly novels he had read, rather than the orcs in Warcraft as he had imagined, Euphony put this race behind him. The territory west of the Warcraft mountains occupied by the orcs was much poorer than that of the human world, and there didn't seem to be much magic crystal ore, which made Euphony even less interested. Unexpectedly, they now dared to attack the hill dwarves covered by the Night Elves. What medicine did they take? The situation on the battlefield, where Avril was located, was already very clear. The number of orc soldiers here was not as many as the Night Elf troops, so they naturally couldn't beat the Night Elves who were assisted by the local hill dwarves. They soon fled under the volleys of 2 waves of archers commanded by Avril. It was just that Euphony scanned it again, and opened the perspective to the many Night Elves in the dwarf hills at the same time, only to find that the situation was actually not optimistic. The reason why the hill dwarves chose to live in this hilly area was naturally not because of the name of their tribe. On the contrary, it is precisely because they are used to living in hilly areas that they are called hill dwarves. However, compared with the underground dwarves who have long been loyal to the Night Elves and collected magic crystals and gold mines for the Night Elves in various places, the hills are obviously not as safe as the underground. The land in the west of the Warcraft mountains is not only barren, but also has a complex terrain. In addition to large areas of Gobi, there are also many terrains such as deserts and hills. Therefore, the orcs can easily adapt to the terrain of the dwarf hills, and they are not comparable to the hill dwarves in fighting. Even with the assistance of the Night Elves, the dwarf hills has now been occupied by half of the orcs. What is going on? Euphony's spirit condensed. In a battlefield between the Night Elves and orcs, Euphony discovered a strange scene. Although the combat effectiveness of the hill dwarves is generally not as high as that of the orc troops attacking the dwarf hills, their morale is quite sufficient to protect their homes. Although they are short in stature, they are not as good as the dark iron dwarves who are scattered around the human world to hone their skills in forging, but they are not far behind. The hill dwarves who participated in the battle were all wearing armor, and they served as melee troops to protect the Night Elves, who were mostly ranged units. With the protection of archers, tree elves, etc., they wielded arrows and poison spears to their heart's content, causing great damage to the orcs who kept attacking the dwarf warriors' defense line. Just looking at it this way, the Night Elves and hill dwarves were clearly in the upper hand. But if you look closely at the battlefield, you will find that the orcs who were seriously injured by the Night Elves quickly retreated, but after a while they appeared on the front line again. How is this possible? Orcs are not demons. How can they have such a strong recovery ability? Euphony was a little shocked. However, relying on the cheating god's perspective, he quickly discovered the secret. Behind this orc army, there were several short pillars on the ground that were emitting light golden light around. These short pillars were engraved with simple but mysterious runes, which made people unconsciously fall into them. The wounded orcs in the front, after retreating to the back and entering the area covered by the light golden light, their injuries began to improve rapidly. In less than a few dozen seconds, a large number of orc soldiers who were originally seriously injured recovered and returned to the battlefield. This is clearly a healing guard. Euphony was extremely shocked. Healing guard is a skill of the troll witch doctor in the Warcraft orcs. The healing guard summoned by the troll witch doctor can provide up to 2% of the maximum health value per second to the friendly non-mechanical units in a large range around. The effect is simply amazing. But how could the native orcs of Eslays have the skills in Warcraft? Euphony was puzzled. The Night Elves on the battlefield also discovered the weirdness of the orc warriors. With the charge of some heavily armored female hunters and the fire support of long-range units, the Night Elves opened a gap in the formation of the orc troops, leading directly to the place where the healing guards stood. Although the healing ward had a powerful healing effect, it was only a very fragile wooden stick, and was quickly destroyed by the female hunter who rushed forward. After that, the Night Elves and hill dwarves on the battlefield also quickly won the battle. Chapter 541, Continental Situation. Euphony used a god's eye view to observe all the places where the Night Elves existed in the dwarf hills. He found that, although the orcs had conquered half of the hill dwarves, they seemed to be weak in the face of the Night Elves' participation in the war. In general, if the orcs maintained their current offensive, they would not be able to take over the entire dwarf hills, not to mention threatening the Whispering Wind Forest behind. After reaching this conclusion, Euphony breathed a sigh of relief and returned his consciousness to the ancient tree. The time spent on wandering was almost zero. Even if the time wasted on observing the battle situation in various places was added, it still took less than half an hour. However, within this half an hour, the Blood Elves had already settled down. The ancient tree of Euphony's body had always been in the Warcraft mountains and had not moved. Illidan, who had reached the mythical level of speed, had already come here to wait. As for the Blood Elves, Yufei was not prepared to let them live together with the Night Elves. The sun well where Yufei lived in the demon world actually broke through the space and came to the world of Esraz, firmly located in the depths of the Warcraft mountains. Yufei simply let the Blood Elves live around the sun well. The Sunwell's pillar of light, which was as powerful as ever even in the world of Esraz, remained undiminished. Without Yufei's deliberate control, the energy that originally constituted the dome turned into a huge pillar of light that went straight to the sky and could even be seen in the wind-whispering forest. The Night Elves were also shocked to see such a change in the depths of the Warcraft mountains, but after learning that it was the power of the Father God, they all took it lightly. Illidan rushed to the ancient tree, naturally to offer the Heart of Darkness. Yufei carefully put the Heart of Darkness, which was only the size of a fist, but carried his hope of advancement, into the ancient space in his body, and couldn't help but relax. Now, he can advance to the level of the Eternal Tree at any time. But before that, Yufei still needs to learn more about the current situation of Esraz. It's just a problem like the Dwarven Hills, and it's not worth the Night Elves calling for me, right? Tyrande, as a powerful person who reached the mythical level early, plus the extremely fast mount of the White Tiger, has now arrived at the place where the Blood Elves are to make arrangements. Illidan also rushed to the ancient tree, after handing over to Tyrande. 4 or 500,000 Blood Elves is a huge number. Fortunately, Tyrande has been entrusted by Yufei to take charge of the Night Elves for so long that she has been familiar with such political affairs and is settling the Blood Elves in an orderly manner. Since it has been decided to settle the Blood Elves in the Warcraft mountains, the small territory that was cleared when going to the Demon Realm before is naturally not enough. Tyrande simply arranged for the Blood Elves to push forward all the way, kill some legendary and even epic Warcraft in the depths of the Warcraft mountains, and open up territory. In the meantime, Tyrande also wanted to measure the strength of the new group of people accepted by the Father God. Seeing Tyrande busy settling the Blood Elves, Yufei was embarrassed to bother her again. After thinking about it, I just saw Avril had solved the battle there. She was originally the person in charge of the Whispering Wind Forest that I assigned, so she should know more. I might as well ask her. Avril. A low and sacred voice sounded in Avril's mind. Avril was delighted and immediately responded excitedly. Father God, you are back. Yufei sighed in his heart. After returning to the world of Esraz after the Undead disaster, he has been in the demon world for nearly 2 years. The Night Elves who had never been away from their care for such a long time before, they really missed him in their hearts. Yes, Avril, I'm back. Tell me, what is the situation in Esraz now? What's going on with these orcs? Yes, Father God. Avril responded respectfully, even though Yufei was not in front of her. Then, she began to explain the current situation of Esraz in detail. Although the scourge was suppressed in the end due to the participation of the Dark Knight Empire and the fact that the undead no longer provided support after completing their mission, the damage caused to the human world was still enormous. In some severely affected areas, there were even several states and principalities that were uninhabited, and the entire country was destroyed by the scourge. Even those ambitious kingdoms and empires had no time to occupy these vacant territories, but tried to restore their damaged vitality and lick their wounds. Only the Dark Knight Empire, although most of its territory belonged to the human world, did not suffer any damage in the scourge. On the contrary, it made a fortune by smuggling enchanted equipment exchanged in the Hunter Hall and magic crystals from the human world during the war. If not, the rapid expansion of the Blood Elves would not be sustainable. After all, when in the demon world, Yufei did not pay much attention to collecting magic hearts to convert energy, but directly use the energy contributed by the S-Laser world. Unfortunately, because Yufei was far away in the demon world and did not give detailed orders, the Dark Knight Empire did not seize the opportunity to continue expanding. It only consolidated the territory that was previously demarcated in the name of aid and did not make any more moves. In this way, the human countries that were severely damaged in the Undead disaster were working hard to recover one by one, and the Dark Knight Empire was only digesting the newly acquired territories because Yufei was not there, and the two lived in peace. It is worth mentioning that the coastal areas of the Cannon Empire were all occupied by the sea people. The Cannon Empire was busy dealing with the undead before, and then its strength was greatly damaged, and it had no time to take care of it, which made the sea people's prestige grow day by day, and even the Dark Knight Empire knew about it. A year passed like this when the human countries in the Dark Knight Empire lived in peace and the sea people emerged as a new force. Just as the vitality of the human countries gradually recovered, the remaining undead wizards were gradually wiped out, and everything was developing in a good direction. The accident happened again. To the west of the Monster Mountain range, the orcs who had been trapped in the barren territory suddenly launched an all-out eastward expedition, and began to invade the human world. The Monster Mountain range is said to run through the north and south of the Slays continent, but in fact it does not run through the entire area. For example, in the north, the Wind Whispering Forest can barely be regarded as a subsidiary forest of the Monster Mountain range, but the northern icefield has nothing to do with the Monster Mountain range at all. Similarly, the Monster Mountain range extends to the south, and is still a long way from the ocean. It's just that the climate in the south is hot, and between the southern end of the Monster Mountain range and the ocean is an extremely vast tropical rainforest, which can also be called a natural barrier. Even the hunters in the surrounding area find it difficult to penetrate this vast rainforest, let alone march. In addition, there are also many monsters living in it, so it is almost impossible to connect the east and the west from here. Once, humans wanted to kill the orcs, and assembled thousands of high-ranking fire magicians, but they could not open up a road for the army to pass through this vast rainforest called the Endless Jungle. Therefore, for a long time, both humans and orcs felt very safe in this rainforest, and never worried that the other side would attack from here. But unexpectedly, the first shot of the orcs' invasion of the human world was fired in this endless jungle. Most of the western border of the Cannon Empire is bordered by the Endless Jungle, and the war first ignited in this country. At that time, the Cannon Empire had just wiped out the roaming necromancers in the country, and was troubled by the sea tribe that took advantage of the situation on the southern coast, actually the Naga tribe. They were not prepared at all for the orcs to cross the Endless Jungle to attack them. After investigation, it was unknown what method the orcs used to open up a wide road in the Endless Jungle. The Cannon Empire scouts who risked their lives to sneak into the Endless Jungle could only see a charred road, which seemed to be burned. For unknown reasons, not only were the ordinary orc warriors much stronger than before, but many orcs with strange abilities also appeared. The Canaanite Empire was caught off guard, and was defeated step by step. Now, 1/3 of its territory is occupied by orcs. Chapter 542, Continental Situation. The Cannon Empire was in a precarious situation, suffering from the disturbances of the Sea Tribe in the south and the invasion of the Orcs in the west. Fortunately, the Orcs were not only in the Cannon Empire. After occupying 1/3 of the territory of the Cannon Empire and opening the way to the hinterland of the human world, they shifted their targets and began to attack those principalities and kingdoms. Yufei could understand this, because he had similar ideas before. If such a large empire is forced into a desperate situation and most of their territory is occupied, in order to kill them all, the empire's heritage and strength will be concentrated in the remaining small territory, becoming an extremely difficult nut to crack. On the contrary, if the target is shifted, after taking some advantage, although it gives the enemy some breathing time, it also makes the enemy's will to resist less firm, and even gives rise to a mentality of I would rather die than die with my friends. Okay, let's get off topic and continue to talk about the situation on the continent. After the orcs in the south passed through the Endless Jungle, they were invincible, but the orcs in the north were also not at peace. First, the Dwarf Hills were attacked. In fact, this had been foreshadowed long ago. It was precisely because of the orcs' restlessness that the Hill Dwarves sought shelter under the command of the Night Elves. However, in the Dwarf Hills, the orcs only attacked fiercely at the beginning, and then they did not seem so strong. After the Night Elves supported the Hill Dwarves, a stalemate was formed. Who would have thought that this was just a strategy of the orcs to make a feint to the east and attack the west? Just when the Night Elves were relieved, and thought that the orcs' focus was on the south and the battle in the north was just a matter of course, they attacked from the northern icefield. Like the Cannon Empire, the Night Elves did not expect the orcs to choose the bitter cold land as a breakthrough. Unprepared for a while, the orcs actually opened a road in the northern icefield in the form of a blitzkrieg, and even isolated the vassal races of the Night Elves in the far North Sea from the Night Elves in the Whispering Wind Forest. This really angered the Night Elves. The far North Sea is the main smuggling route for the Night Elves. A large number of magic crystals and magic cores obtained from the human world are transported from the northern sea route through the Shadow Kingdom fleet established by pirates. Although Uferi had already built a tree of life on the coast of the far North Sea specifically for transforming magic crystals, this was also a great threat and provocation to the Night Elves. There was nothing to say. The Night Elves immediately dispatched the entire tribe and started a war with the orcs. Because Uferi had opened some permissions for Tyrande and other heroes before going to the demon realm, Tyrande organized the heroes to directly purchase a large number of city return scrolls and teleport troops to the Tree of Life in the northern icefield, giving the orcs a two-sided attack on the road they had opened up. Uferi then realized that the battle in the Dwarf Hills was just a small fight. No wonder only Avril was seen there. Continuing to listen to Avril's narration, Uferi separated a part of his mind and attached it to the Tree of Life in the northern icefield to check the situation. With the efforts of the Warcraft wild monster races represented by the Derenal people who were under the command of the Night Elves when the northern icefield was unified, and the Amazon tribe, the port on the northern icefield has become a huge port city. The Tree of Life stands in the center of this port city. At this time, the port city is already in a tense war atmosphere. A large number of Night Elves that were teleported over lined up and headed south. Even the vassal races were mobilized one by one, forming an organization to fight the orcs together with the Night Elf troops. Is the situation so unfavorable? Even the vassal races have to be dispatched? Uferi was puzzled, seeing that there were still a large number of ships entering and leaving the harbor to unload magic crystals and magic cores. Uferi was relieved a little, and then switched his perspective to the mountain giant hero Tino who was fighting in the northern icefield. As soon as he switched his perspective to this side, Uferi was shocked. Around Tino, there were a large number of green-skinned orcs. This is completely different from the orcs and slays. Looking at these orcs with long teeth and green skin, Uferi immediately thought of the orcs in Warcraft. Could it be that the orcs have also appeared? Thinking of the undead tribe he had seen in the demon world, Uferi confirmed his guess. But if nothing unexpected happened, the orcs should also be controlled by a fellow traveler from Earth. How could they attack the Night Elves? Moreover, how could they be mixed with the orcs and slays? Tino stomped on the ground hard, and the earth shook violently. Those sturdy orcs were completely no match for Tino, a hero who had reached the epic level. They were knocked down one after another, and escaped from their encirclement with a charge by Tino. However, Tino, who had escaped from the encirclement of ordinary orc soldiers, suffered other attacks. Suddenly, a large number of black things flew out of the sky and hit Tino and the ground around him. Looking closely, these black things were actually huge rocks, but for some reason, they were mixed with a large amount of black viscous liquid. Yes, this is the catapult of the orcs in Warcraft. If nothing unexpected happens, boom, just when Uferi made his judgment, the black viscous liquid burned as expected. The catapult of the orcs in Warcraft has a burning effect, which can ignite a long-lasting flame at the landing point. Almost at the same time, Uferi thought of the southern part of the Warcraft mountains. Compared with the orcs, it is with this catapult mixed with kerosene that they have opened up a road in the endless jungle, right? Uferi guessed correctly. In fact, the orcs had started to move eastward as early as when the human world was devastated by the undead scourge, but the endless jungle was so deep that, even if they dispatched a large number of catapults, it took them a whole year to open up a road in the endless jungle and attack the Cannon Empire. The attack of the catapult is not low, and the flame, that is difficult to extinguish, is even more annoying. But for Tino, such an attack is obviously insignificant. After a rough glance, Uferi judged that this small group of orcs would definitely be annihilated by Tino's men. After wandering around the northern ice fields, Uferi found that the situation was not optimistic. Although the Night Elves reacted quickly, several heroes including Tino rushed to the northern ice fields to fight under Tyrande's mobilization, but the number of orcs was too large. Concentrating his mind, Uferi looked deep. The continent of Slays is about to be in complete chaos. In this endless chaos, the only thing that can be relied on is strong strength. If you want to realize your ambition to unify the continent of Slays, you can only rely on strength. Then, let's move towards the final form. Eupheny made a decision. Although the Night Elves are fighting against the Orcs on two fronts in the Dwarf Hills and the Northern Ice Fields, the situation in the Northern Ice Fields is not very good, but it has not yet endangered the foundation of the Night Elves. It has been several years since the last time he advanced from the Tree of Life to the Ancient Tree. Eupheny even has some impatience for the level of the Eternal Tree. When I advance to the Eternal Tree, unlock the powerful abilities of the Night Elves and train the ultimate Night Elves, the Orcs will be nothing but chickens and dogs. In the ancient space in Eupheny's body, 6 fist-sized stones of different colors slowly flow up. These 6 stones are the Flame Heart, Ocean Heart, Earth Heart, Sky Heart, Light Heart, and Dark Heart, that Eupheny spent a lot of effort to get from the Demon Realm. Under Eupheny's control, the 6 hearts rotated and approached in the air, and gradually stuck together. Click, click as the sound of the 6 hearts colliding together sounded. It seemed as if a small sun suddenly rose in the air in the ancient space, pouring out colorful light. As time passed, these lights gradually merged, leaving only the emerald green color that made people feel peaceful at a glance. Thanks to the book friend Wendy Hay for 100 Nyangbi points, and the book friend Ren Fengting for 1888 Nyangbi points. Chapter 543, Immortal Seed. Is this the heart of eternity? Looking at the pale green in the air of the ancient space in his body, and the equal area circle and small height cylinder on the ground, Euphegy's eyes were full of embarrassment. Damn, this is clearly a piece of green bean cake. Right. Eupheny didn't know why the 6 hearts of red, blue, yellow, cyan, white and black would turn pale green when they merged together, but this heart of eternity now looked exactly like a piece of green bean cake. Ah, do you want me to eat it? Eupheny suddenly seemed to understand this setting. When it was upgraded to the level of the ancient tree, it was upgraded directly by consuming the required energy and wood, but upgrading to the level of the eternal tree required the heart of eternity. How to use it? Of course, eat it. He is so smart. Eupheny was very proud. But what happened next seemed to slap him hard. The heart of eternity, which turned into a piece of green bean cake, quickly dissipated and turned into wisps of pale green mist. Eupheny didn't have time to think about his misjudgment, and his heart suddenly tightened. This is a necessity for his body to advance to the level of the eternal tree. Finding the 6 hearts is either a coincidence, or it takes a lot of effort and countless casualties. If something goes wrong, where can I find another eternal heart? Under Eupheny's worried and nervous attention, part of the light green mist that was formed by the collapse of the eternal heart gradually merged into the ancient space, and suddenly the boundary of the ancient space began to expand rapidly. The other part of the light green mist, in the blink of an eye, penetrated the ancient space and appeared in the outside world. Eupheny was startled. He had been concentrating on these light green mists, but he couldn't see clearly how they left the ancient space. The light green mist that appeared in the outside world quickly merged into the more than 800-meter high tree trunk of Eupheny's body like a young swallow flying into the forest. Strangely enough, the green mist emitted by a piece of the heart of eternity the size of a mung bean cake is rare, and only a part of it penetrates the ancient space and merges into Eupheny's tree body, which is naturally even less. But in Eupheny's feeling, when the rare green mist merges into the back of his tree body, the huge tree body with a canopy area of more than 800 meters and an area of about 4 square kilometers feels incomparable comfort. This feeling is like okay, Eupheny is still a virgin and doesn't know what it feels like to make love, but he thinks that the comfort he feels in his huge tree body is probably much stronger than orgasm. And in the eyes of the night elves around Eupheny's body, in fact, only Illidan, Eupheny's tree body was suddenly surrounded by a green light that made people feel peaceful at first sight. This light should be just pure light, but it made Illidan feel the refreshing fragrance, as if he had come to the Garden of Eden, and he unconsciously wanted to sink in and reach eternity here. Fortunately, the mythical level mind is still extremely powerful. Illidan only sank into this feeling for a few seconds before waking up. Although Illidan had not been summoned, when Eupheny advanced from the Tree of Life to the ancient tree, any night elf who saw this scene would know what happened. The father is going to become an eternal existence. Illidan was full of excitement. Although he had been collecting the components of the Heart of Eternity and knew clearly that the Dark Heart he had just handed over to the Father was the last component, and the Father could then synthesize the Heart of Eternity and advance to the Heart of Eternity level, Illidan couldn't help but lose his composure when he really saw this scene. In fact, Euphenia's level is closely related to the Night Elves. It's not just about the improvement of strength and the unlocking of skills, but from the name, you can see the difference between the ancient tree and the eternal tree. Let's put it this way, when Euphenia was still at the ancient tree level, the state of the Night Elves was actually equivalent to ancient. The lifespan of those trained or manufactured by Euphenia will be extremely long, and they can live from ancient times to modern times, but they are not immortal. Only when Euphenia's body reaches a level of the eternal tree, the Night Elves can truly be called an immortal race. Because their father god, and also their mother, has become eternal, they will also be able to share eternity. Illidan only felt that a small seedling suddenly took root in the depths of his heart, and then it quickly grew, and soon became a towering tree. The appearance of this tree is exactly the appearance of Euphenia's body. Not only Illidan, but every Night Elf has this scene in their hearts. Then, they had a kind of enlightenment. From now on, they will become the real immortal species, not the previous longevity species. This kind of immortal species is true immortality, and the Night Elves will not be able to die naturally. Not only that, even if they die unnaturally, and are killed by the enemy in the war, their souls can still return to the arms of the Father God. Euphenia now knows this. After the Heart of Eternity was integrated into the tree and the corresponding resources required for the advancement to the Tree of Eternity were deducted, Euphenia was shocked to find that this advancement was actually completed directly. Before he had time to check more changes, he got an important inheritance memory in his heart. This inheritance memory seemed to be limited by conditions. It would only appear when he advanced to the Tree of Eternity level. Otherwise, no matter how much he practiced Yuan Mu Zenju, he would not know it. The content of the inheritance memory was about the saying that the Night Elves became immortal. Euphenia could understand that they would not die naturally, but what did it mean that they could still return to the embrace of the Father God after unnatural death? Euphenia was confused and continued to read the inheritance memory. When he read the inheritance memory thoroughly at a glance, his heart was already full of excitement. Good thing. Great thing. As we all know, the Night Elves trained by Euphenia were like puppets at the ordinary level, with almost no wisdom and only fighting instincts. When they reach the elite level, their wisdom will improve a lot, and their personality will be initially formed. When ordinary Night Elves advance to the elite level, they are completely independent life forms, with complete wisdom and personality. It is not wrong to say that they have souls. However, if they are killed by the enemy in the war, they are truly dead. Not to mention the time and energy it takes to upgrade a unit from ordinary to elite level. Euphenia feels very uncomfortable that such a person who worships and believes in him from the bottom of his heart died. In a sense, just as the Night Elves call Euphenia, Euphenia is the father who gave birth to every Night Elf. Of course there is no mother. If it is those ordinary puppet-like guys, it is okay. The Night Elves who really have wisdom are like his own children in Euphenia's eyes. Let alone the elite units. Even the death of the elite Night Elves with some wisdom makes Euphenia sad. It is precisely because of this mentality that Euphenia strives to minimize the losses of the Night Elves in previous wars. For example, epic warriors rarely appear or fight in wars on the Slays continent, but Euphenia would always send heroes to reduce the losses of the Night Elves. But even so, there is no way there will be no losses in the war. There are still many dead elite Night Elves, and Euphenia often regrets this. However, now there is a way to solve this problem. When Euphenia's body became the eternal tree, he naturally had the ability to reincarnate. Of course, this ability is limited to the Night Elves. Euphenia can collect the heroic spirits of the dead elite Night Elves, and when he trains new Night Elves, these heroic spirits will be infused into them. The newly trained Night Elves will have the original wisdom as soon as they come out. This is the real immortality. Chapter 544, Conferring a Hero. What made Euphenia even more delighted was that this reincarnation-like method could not only preserve the original wisdom, but even the strength. In other words, the Night Elf soldiers trained, after being infused with the spirits of the dead heroes, would not be just ordinary, but would directly possess the wisdom of the elite or even elite level and the corresponding strength. What does this mean? Yufei quickly understood. This means that the war is no loss for the Night Elves. No, it cannot be said that there is no loss. Creating a new Night Elf body still requires energy and wood, but this is just a drizzle. At this time, Yufei really had the confidence to look down on the world. The Orcs. They have always become the enemies of the Night Elves as they thought, and they will never be the opponents of the Night Elves today. Although the so-called immortality changes did not bring an intuitive improvement in the strength of the Night Elves on the surface, its strategic significance and long-term benefits are huge. However, after analyzing and understanding the theory of the immortal species, Yufei put aside his excitement for the time being and began to check other changes after he advanced to the level of the Eternal Tree. Speaking of which, Yufei was also a little strange. When he advanced from the Tree of Life to the Ancient Tree, it took him a whole day. During this time, there were also situations such as the siege of the city by the monsters. But this time, when he advanced to the Eternal Tree, it was only after the light green mist transformed by the Heart of Eternity merged into the tree body that the main body directly became the Eternal Tree. However, after thinking about it, Yufei also realized that this might be the effect of the Heart of Eternity, so he stopped thinking about it. Besides, is this time the advancement also going to involve the siege of the city by the monsters? Now, even if half of the monsters in the Monster Mountain range come to attack, they can't defeat the Night Elves. What's more, now they still have to pass the Blood Elves. Regarding the changes, after advancing to the Eternal Tree, the first thing Yufei noticed was his body. When it was originally at the level of the Ancient Tree, the huge tree trunk that was 800 meters high and covered an area of nearly 4 square kilometers already surprised Yufei, but now this Eternal Tree has explained what it means that there is no biggest, only bigger. Towering into the clouds was originally just an exaggerated adjective, but it is not exaggerated when applied to Yufei's tree now. Yufei, who is used to using his mental power to observe the surrounding situation, rarely opened the eyes of the tree body, and what floated in front of him were white clouds. After a little measurement, Yufei came to the conclusion that his tree trunk is now 5,000 meters high. This height is no longer something that the surrounding mountains, that are only about 1,000 meters high, can cover. Yufei estimated that his body could be seen vaguely in the Dark Night capital. If it were in the past, Yufei would definitely worry that humans would discover his body and take some actions, but now he would never worry again. Not to mention that humans are now being messed up by the Orcs. Even if humans and Orcs attack the Night Elves together, Yufei is not afraid. Strong strength is always the basis. Corresponding to his height, Yufei's tree trunk has many more branches. The area covered by its canopy is nearly 100 square kilometers. This is no longer a tree city, but a tree country. You know, this 100 square kilometers is not just one layer. Even if one layer of branches occupies a height of 20 meters, Yufei, who has a large number of branches extending from the waist, now has more than 100 layers. Converted, that is to say, Yufei's tree trunk now has tens of thousands of square kilometers of land for living. Even if the number of Night Elves has greatly increased, it is enough for all Night Elves and even Blood Elves to live in the Eternal Tree. The trunk and branches have changed, and the roots are naturally no exception. Originally, there were many ancient gods and giant wood gods standing around Yufei's body. When Yufei's body advanced to the Ancient Tree, these tree people, which were considered buildings, were connected to Yufei's exposed tree roots. Now as Yufei's roots extend outward, the positions of these tree people are naturally arranged outward, and at the same time, they begin to swell like balloons. Finally, these treemen who were originally used by Yufei to protect his original body not only grew in size, but also became much stronger. However, these were no longer important matters. No Night Elf would come to live in Yufei's original body. This might be a blasphemy in their eyes. Those treemen who served as guards were actually unnecessary, even if they were very strong. In the world of SLAs, who else could fight to Yufei's original body? Well, it's not like there were no residents. Yufei suddenly found a little guy who had just been awakened above his head. The purple dragon reared. In the past few years, little Reed had rarely had the opportunity to fight. The appearance of heroes of the Night Elves made this little purple dragon, which had just reached the epic level, not so prominent, so it simply slept in the canopy of Euphena's original body. Now, the earth-shaking changes in Euphena's original body finally awakened little Reed. However, in Euphena's helpless eyes, the little guy just raised his head and looked at the surrounding clouds and mist in a daze, then lay down and went back to dreaming. Well, I've lost to you. Euphena was speechless. But deep in his heart, he always felt that little Red would definitely play a great role, so he was more fond of it and didn't care about it sleeping on top of his body. In addition to the changes in the body, Euphena was most concerned about the Elder Altar. After all, the heroes transformed from the head of the soldiers still have defects. The genuine heroes of the Night Elves have always been Tyrant, Maiev and Illidan. I have been promoted to the level of the Eternal Tree, so I should be able to summon more heroes, right? Euphena remembered that when he was promoted to the level of the Ancient Tree, he thought he could only summon one new hero, but he didn't expect that it was a strange setting of 1 for the first level Mothboard and 2 for the second level Mothboard. Now that it has reached the third level Mothboard, it won't be 3, right? However, the genuine hero of the Night Elves is only the Jungle Guardian, commonly known as the Old Deer. If the strange setting is really continued, where will the other 2 heroes come from? Euphena was somewhat confused and expectant. Soon, his doubts were answered. In the Elder Altar, there was indeed an option to summon the Guardian of the Jungle, but there was another explanation that made Euphena extremely happy. When Euphena's body became the Eternal Tree, the Elder Altar had the function of canonization. This canonization was nothing else but heroes. When in the demon world, Euphena once envied Zhao Kang for being able to copy heroes and having more than 40 hero units. And Euphena himself, including those heroes transformed from the heads of soldiers, only had about 10. Now, he finally doesn't have to envy Zhao Kang anymore. From now on, the Elder Altar will be able to canonize qualified units as heroes. And this qualification needs Euphena to discover it himself. In fact, there are not too many units that have the possibility of becoming heroes. But even so, it is much better than the imagined 3 hero quotas. Besides, the so-called search for qualified people has traces to follow. Euphena can directly scan the units under his command and easily find the units that can be canonized as heroes. Don't need too many, just give me 10 or 8 will be enough. Euphena muttered silently in his heart and soon began to look for units that can be canonized as heroes among his subordinates. He also knew that Zhao Kang's cloned heroes were actually flawed. In addition to having only 4 skills and the limit of the level cap, the excessive template is also a problem. The heroes who walked out of the Elder Altar are different. Whether it is a genuine hero or a hero transformed by a soldier, they all have different powerful and practical abilities. Euphena expects the so-called canonized heroes to be like this. What Euphena didn't expect was that when he started searching for just 1 second, he found a unit that could be canonized as a hero. Guess who is the first hero that can be canonized? He. Thanks to book friend Mizuwu for the evaluation vote. Thanks to book friend SUIZNCIE for the reward of 588 Nyangbi points. Thanks to book friend Ren Fengting for the 3 magic cakes. Chapter 545 Searching for a Hero. Euphena raised his eyes in surprise, but unfortunately his hair or the tree crown was too lush, so he couldn't see directly above. If it were normal, Euphena would never make such a low-level mistake. He had long been accustomed to using mental power and God's perspective to observe. It was just that the guy who could become a hero that was found in 1 second was too surprising to him, so he subconsciously looked up. That's right, the unit that Euphena found that could be canonized as a hero was the little purple dragon Red who had been snoring above his head. Speaking of it, it's a bit inappropriate to call it a little purple dragon now. Red's body has become larger. In addition, the name Red was also when it was still a newly born red dragon. Euphena simply used the sound of red in English to name it. Now it is purple, and this name is not suitable for the game. But he is used to the name Red, and Euphena is too lazy to change it if there is no need. It's just that Red can actually become a hero, which surprised Euphena a little. Because in practical terms, Red does not really belong to Euphena's camp. It is a dragon, not a night elf, and has no clear subordinate relationship with Yuffie. If Red can also become a hero under his command, does it mean that other races under his command, who are not night elves, can also become heroes? Yuffie even thanked Red a little. Before, due to the limitations of his thinking, he only planned to look for units that could become heroes among the Night Elves troops. If Red had not lived on his head, he would not have subconsciously scanned. Now with Red as an example, Yuffie has begun to look forward to finding people who can become heroes among the Blood Elves and even the dwarves who have become his vassals. Temporarily suppressing the idea of continuing to look for other units that can become heroes, Yuffie checked the types of heroes that Red could transform into. But this look surprised Yuffie again. Originally, he guessed that if Red could be transformed into a hero, it should be the template of the two-headed dragon or winter dragon in Dota. Although the attributes of the undead dragon and the underworld dragon are different, they are also possible because they are all dragons. However, the hero that Red could be canonized as was not any of the above 4 types, but a dragon knight. This surprised Yuffie a little. A dragon knight only had dragon blood and could transform into a dragon, but he was still a human being. Red was clearly a living dragon. How could he become a dragon knight? However, the Elder Altar had already given his identity, and Yuffie had no choice, even if he didn't understand. The choice given by the Elder Altar, a building that specialized in producing heroes, was naturally the most appropriate, and Yuffie could only explain it himself. Perhaps a dragon knight was not limited to humans with dragon blood. After all, the signature ability of a dragon knight was to transform into a dragon, and it would be even better if he was a dragon. He could probably switch freely between human and dragon forms. It was just that humans who could transform into dragons were called dragon knights. So shouldn't Red, who could transform into a human, be called a human knight? Yuffie was embarrassed. Red gave Yuffie's hero search a good start, and Yuffie simply woke him up from his sleep and let him enter the Elder Altar to start transforming into a hero. Red was a bit grumpy at first, after being woken up, but after realizing that it was Yuffie who called him, he stopped being angry and obediently flew to the sky above the Elder Altar according to Yuffie's arrangement. Then he was pulled into the Elder Altar, which was radiating brilliance, and began the process of transformation into a hero. Red's ability to become a hero was an unexpected gain, and it also made Yuffie change his search mode. Originally, he was going to search directly among the Night Elves under his command, without involving other races under his command. Now with Red's example, Yuffie had other ideas. The search mode he adopted now became a carpet-style search around him with himself as the center, not letting go of any unit. Although the search mode would be much slower, it could accurately identify every unit that could become a hero. Just now, Yuffie radiated his mental power not far away, and he found the second unit that could become a hero. This time, the unit that could become a hero appeared among the Blood Elves who had just moved to the world of Veslays. After discovering that Red could become a hero, Yuffie began to speculate about the possible heroes of the Blood Elves, and the results of the search were not beyond his expectations. The unit that can become a hero in the Blood Elf clan is an elite Blood Elf magician. This elite Blood Elf magician with exclusive skills belonging to the fire system can be canonized as a hero, which is surprisingly the template of the human blood mage in Warcraft. Yuffie was not surprised at all. The blood mage in Warcraft itself is a Blood Elf clan. Now there is no surprise that a unit with a blood mage template can appear in the Blood Elf clan under his command. What makes Yuffie regretful is that the blood mage who is transformed and canonized in this way will obviously not be the Blood Elf prince named Keelphus with the surname of Sunstrider in the history of Warcraft. Yuffie is still very interested in such celebrities. However, what surprised Yuffie even more was that in addition to this elite Blood Elf magician who could apply the Blood Magician template, the two Blood Elves who first became elite Blood Knights, namely the first Blood Rage Knight and the first Shelter Knight, could also become heroes. The hero template that the Blood Rage Knight could use was Chaos Knight. The hero template that the Shelter Knight could use was Omni Knight. In Yuffie's memory, these two heroes were very powerful and extremely useful heroes. Yuffie was also very much looking forward to the 3 heroes that could be canonized in the Blood Elf clan, but the Elder Altar was now occupied by Reed, so the 3 Blood Elves would have to wait a few more hours to be transformed into heroes. Yufei didn't expect that he could add 4 heroes to his command. As soon as he started searching, Yufei felt very happy at this time. With more expectations, Yufei continued to search. Because the Blood Elves had just moved to live in the Warcraft mountain area not far from Yufei's body, they were the second to be found to become hero units. The next search was among the Night Elves. As expected, Yufei soon found a unit that could become a hero among the Night Elves, and it was a 3-shot one-shot. These 3 Night Elf soldiers that could become heroes, like Avril, were the most basic soldiers of the Night Elves, the archers. The 3 archer sisters who were trained at the same time and reached the elite level together could use the templates of the Light Ranger, Dark Ranger and Windrunner respectively. It was gratifying to find 3 units that could become heroes at once, but the subsequent search made Yufei a little depressed. In such a large Night Elf tribe, in addition to the 3 archer sisters, Yufei only found 2 more units that could become heroes. These 2 units were actually a little beyond Yufei's expectations. They were a little elf and a giant wood guard. One of them could use the template of the elf guard, and the other could use the template of the tree spirit guard. After thinking about it, Yufei also understood a little. The soldiers in the Night Elves have already become heroes. Overall, there are already many units that can become heroes in the Night Elves. It is very good to find 3 new ones. Besides, there are only a few hero templates that can be applied to the elves in Warcraft. It is impossible to apply some hero templates that have nothing to do with elves to the Night Elves. Thinking of this, Yufei was relieved. Even if he found units that can become heroes among other races, the Night Elves still have the most heroes. Therefore, this hero canonization will not affect the status of the Night Elves under his command. After figuring it out, Yufei began to search further away without any psychological pressure. Thanks to the book friend Mizuwu for another evaluation vote. Chapter 546. Read. Davian. In the following search, Yufei found units that could become heroes frequently. Although they did not appear in large numbers like the Blood Elves and the 3 Archer Sisters, the number of heroes that appeared was also quite large, which surprised Yufei. First of all, the Hill Dwarves, who had become vassals of the Night Elves, appeared among these dwarves as expected, and they could apply the template of the King of the Hill. However, what surprised Yufei was that this dwarf was actually Gargantuan, who first encountered the Night Elves and later promoted the Hill Dwarves to join the Night Elves. In addition to being surprised, Yufei was also quite satisfied. After all, it feels different to let someone you know become a hero than to let a dwarf you don't know become the King of the Hill. A hero like the King of the Hill appeared among the dwarves, and Yufei suddenly felt that this so-called hero qualification was traceable. From the dwarves, Yufei suddenly thought of goblins. In Warcraft, especially in Dota, there are several heroes of the goblin clan. Although the goblins in the world of Eslaser have become a race with a low status and lost civilization due to the suppression of humans, who knows if there are goblins among them who can become heroes? Perhaps we can try to bring the goblins under our command, like we did with the underground dwarves and hill dwarves, and make them vassals of the Night Elves. Although the goblins have a low status in the world of Eslaser, it is always good to have more heroes. It is easier to win over people with a low status. However, these are all things to be considered later. What we need to do now is to find more heroes. Following the King of the Hills in the Hill Dwarves, Yufei found 3 more heroes in the Northern Icefield. These 3 units that can become heroes belong to the Frost Trolls, Snow Fur Monsters and Tuskers, who are vassals of the Night Elves. The template used by the unit that can become a hero in the Frost Trolls is the Troll Warlord. The one used by the Snow Fur Monster is the Bear Warrior. The one used by the Tuskers is the Tusk Sea People. Finally, Yufei's mind moved, and he sent his consciousness to the Shadow Kingdom again. He unexpectedly discovered that Yorick, who had joined him, could also become a hero. The hero template he used was the Admiral. So far, Yufei has found 14 units that can become new heroes, but he is still a little dissatisfied. At least the number of Blood Elves is hundreds of thousands. There can't be only 3 heroes, right? Even if the number of heroes is not as good as that of the Night Elves, there should be more than 3. Thinking of what the elders said in the altar, that becoming a hero requires qualifications, Yufei understood a little. Perhaps the units in the Blood Elves that can become heroes have not been trained yet. In Euphenu's conception, the Blood Elves should have at least 2 or 3 more heroes. Although the number of 14 new heroes is still not as many as the Undead clone heroes, the skills that these units that will be transformed into heroes later can have are all different, which is naturally much better than those stereotyped clone heroes. Moreover, in Euphenu's guess, the leader of the Chimera, a type of soldier that will soon be able to be trained, should also be able to become a hero. In this case, together with the Jungle Guardian that can be summoned from the altar, Euphenu's body will be able to have 16 more heroes after upgrading to the Eternal Tree. So many heroes, but the transformation takes a lot of time. When Red successfully transformed into a dragon rider and flew out of the Elder Altar, Euphenu immediately ordered the Elder Altar to start summoning Jungle Guardians. After all, the Old Deer is also a genuine hero of the Night Elves. Just now, he was excited to learn that there would be many extra heroes, so he asked Red to transform first. Now that Red has been transformed successfully, it is better to let the Old Deer come out first. However, in the background of Warcraft, in addition to Malfurion, the representative figure of the Jungle Guardian, the demigod Cenarius is actually also a Jungle Guardian. I just don't know, will the Jungle Guardian summoned from the altar be Malfurion or Cenarius? Subjectively speaking, Euphenu prefers Cenarius. Although Malfurion is Illidan's brother and also has the surname Stormridge, the two brothers are enemies in the background story. Compared with Malfurion, Euphenu still likes Illidan more. After all, Illidan has served him for such a long time, and they have been in the demon world together. And in terms of strength in the background story, Cenarius, as a demigod, is much stronger than Malfurion. Under these two reasons, Euphenu will of course have such a tendency. However, all this can only be decided by the Elder Altar. Euphenu can only wait until the Jungle Guardian is really summoned before he can know which celebrity it is. Now, it is better to look at Red, who has become a hero. No, Red's name is no longer applicable. Euphenu suddenly thought of this. It was okay before, but now the purple dragon has become a hero, so he has to get a more domineering name. After thinking about it, Euphenu still thinks that Davian is the best name, so Red has changed his name to Davian from then on. Dragon Knight. Davian basic attributes: omitted skills. Form transformation. Davian can freely transform between dragon form and human form. When in dragon form, the skills he possesses are the same as when he was a dragon. When in human form, he has the following new skills. Breath of Fire. Spits out a stream of fire in a cone in front of him, causing damage to enemy units. The damage and range increase with the skill level. Dragon Tail. The Dragon Knight slams the opponent in close range, causing damage and stunning. The damage and stun time increase with the skill level. Dragon Bloodline. Since the human form is compressed from the dragon form, Davian will have an extremely high life recovery rate and a very strong armor bonus. Animal creatures will have a high chance of being shocked in front of the Dragon Knight. Dragon Fighting in the Wild. Ultimate skill. Davian combines the dragon form and the human form to become a powerful half-dragon man, able to use all the skills of both forms at the same time, and each basic attribute is doubled by the average of the two forms. Just as Euphenu had thought before, the Dragon Knight transformed from a giant dragon is different from the human Dragon Knight. In Dota, the ultimate skill of the Dragon Knight is the true dragon form, which can transform into a giant dragon. But in the current Davian, the giant dragon is actually its true form. Therefore, it can freely switch between the giant dragon form and the human form. This should not even be considered a skill, but just instinct. What surprised Euphenu was that such a Dragon Knight actually had two sets of skills. Red, who had not yet become a Dragon Knight, also had skills such as Devouring. Euphenu was worried that these skills would disappear after becoming a Dragon Knight, but now he is relieved. As for the skills in human form, the Flame Breath and the Dragon Tail Swing are no different from the skill attributes in the game, but the Dragon Bloodline has been greatly enhanced, and there is an additional attribute of Shocking Beast Creatures. This is probably because Davian himself is a giant dragon and has a strong dragon power. What surprised Euphenu the most was the skill of Dragon Fighting in the Wild, which is very powerful just by looking at the name. When Euphenu first saw the name of the skill, He thought that Davian was also a time traveler who could perform the 18 dragon palms. Dragon fighting in the wild should be a very powerful attack skill, right? After seeing the skill attributes clearly, Yufei realized that this might be a change to the original Dragon Knight's ultimate skill, the true dragon form. After all, form conversion cannot be considered a skill, and we can't let Davian lose an ultimate skill, right? It is already very powerful for a half-dragon man to be able to use all the skills of both forms, and the basic attributes are doubled by the average of the two forms, which is even more incredible. When Davian is in dragon form, his strength is the highest, his agility is medium, and his intelligence is low. In human form, his intelligence is the highest, his agility is medium, and his strength is the lowest. Doubling the average values of the half-dragon form has raised these three attributes to a terrifying level. It can be said that Davian, who has activated the dragon fighting in the wild state, is truly a war machine. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547, Jungle Guardian and Blood Mage. Yufei was very satisfied with the original Red, now Davian. Because Red had epic strength, when it transformed into a hero, it directly reached the 7th level of the hero level, and could learn all skills. Under Yufei's somewhat curious request, Davian reluctantly turned into a human form for Yufei to watch. Davian's age is not very old, only a few years old. Even in the human race, a few years old is just a child, not to mention the dragon race. However, Davian in human form does not look like a little kid. He looks at least 17 or 18 years old and extraordinary. Seeing that Davian does not like to maintain the human form, Yufei did not force it, and let it maintain the dragon form at ordinary times. However, the transformation into a hero has a more intuitive benefit for Davian. It is no longer as sleepy as before. After tilting his head and thinking for a while, Davian flapped his wings and flew away from Yufei's body and went to find Tyrant. When Reed was first discovered, it was Tyrant who adopted him, and he was closest to Tyrant among the Night Elves. Shaking his head, Yufei stopped paying attention to Davian's situation. The Dragon Knight had already transformed, the Jungle Guardian was being summoned, and there were 12 units that could be transformed into heroes waiting to be transformed. Considering the different distances between the selected units and their original bodies, Yufei directly gave them orders in their minds, asking them to come over now. It is worth mentioning that Yorick was the more troublesome one. He is now the king of the Shadow Kingdom. Although he is not very busy due to the system, he is also quite busy. The location of the Shadow Kingdom is too far away from the Warcraft mountains. As the king, Yorick could not spare so much time to transform. Later, Yufei came up with a solution and sent the Sky Druid to the Shadow Kingdom to pick up Yorick with a scroll to the city, which solved the problem. However, because there is no Tree of Life in the Shadow Kingdom, Yorick can only teleport to the Tree of Life at the Northern Iceport when he returns, and then take a boat back to his country. Of course, this is all later. Now Yufei is concerned about the situation of the Jungle Guardian. After Reed successfully transformed into Davian, 2 hours later, the Jungle Guardian was also successfully summoned. Accompanied by the familiar sound and light effects, a strong figure walked out of the Elder's altar. "It is my duty to protect the earth." A low voice sounded, and Yufei also saw the appearance of the Jungle Guardian clearly. In fact, the appearance of the Jungle Guardian is no different from that of the Tree Demon, except for one man, one woman, one old and one young. Otherwise, they would not have the nicknames of Old Deer and Young Deer respectively. Unlike the Heartless and Rude Davian, when the Jungle Guardian was summoned, just like Tyrant and others who were summoned before, he first came to Yufei's body and saluted. And when this Old Deer saluted, Yufei had already started to check his attributes. Jungle Guardian, Scenarius basic attributes, N/A skills, Force of Nature, summons a large number of Trents from a group of trees to assist in combat. The number and attributes of summoned Trents increase with skill level. Entanglement, summons tree roots from the ground to entangle the enemy, rendering them unable to move, and causing continuous damage. The entanglement range, duration, and damage increase with skill level. Aura of Thorns surrounds allied troops within a certain range with a shield of thorns, causing damage to melee units that attack them. The percentage of reflected damage increases with skill level. Earth Tremor trembles the ground beneath the enemy's feet, causing damage and stunning them for a period of time. The damage value and stun duration increase with skill level. Lightning Storm summons a lightning storm to attack enemy units. The damage value and skill release range increase with skill level. Tranquility rains life over a large area, restoring 5/7/10% of the health of friendly troops within the range per second. As expected, the main hero of the Night Elf, Jungle Keeper, has 6 skills like the Demon Hunter, Warden and Priestess of the Moon. However, compared with the first 3 heroes, Yufei is not very satisfied with Cenarius' skills. First of all, the properties of the Aura of Thorns overlap with the Crown of Thorns that Tyrande is wearing now, but it is not a bad thing to have one more. Secondly, the giant tree protector that Yufei found before that can be transformed into a tree protector after the transformation is completed. Its ultimate skill must be the same as the tree protector in Dota, with a large range of entanglement. The attribute of this skill is much stronger than the entanglement of the Jungle Keeper. As for Earth Tremor and Lightning Storm, they are both newly added output skills, which are better than nothing. However, the skill of Force of Nature can be combined with the sprouting of Sky Druid to create a large number of cannon fodder in places without trees. The only thing that makes Yufei very satisfied is Cenarius' ultimate skill, Tranquility. Although this skill needs to be cast continuously like Tyrande's Falling Stars, its life recovery effect is amazing. The level 1 skill effect can restore 5% of life per second. In other words, even if the health is low, even if it is a soldier with high health that is difficult to be restored by rejuvenation, it only takes 20 seconds to go from low to full. If it is upgraded to level 3, it only takes 10 seconds. The key is that the range of Tranquility is extremely large. In the war, if Cenarius is well protected, the Night Elves can be said to be immortal, as long as the duration of Tranquility. Compared with Tranquility, the healing guards of the Orcs are simply weak. It's a pity that Cenarius was newly summoned, and only has level 1. It takes some time to level up to the level that can use Tranquility. Although Cenarius is a demigod in the background of Warcraft, as the father god, Yufei, the real god of the Night Elves, will not feel any pressure. After encouraging Cenarius and guiding him to upgrade in the Warcraft mountains, Yufei was looking forward to the next hero to be transformed. Blood Mage, Roy specific attributes, omitted skills, Flame Storm, Exile, Mana Sucking, Fire Phoenix. This type of canonized hero only has 4 skills. Yufei had actually discovered this a long time ago. Even under his command, heroes are divided into 3 levels. The level here does not refer to strength, but to qualifications. The highest qualifications are obviously the 4 main heroes of the Night Elves. They are the highest in both basic attributes and the number of skills. Each of them has 5 basic skills, and 1 ultimate skill. The second level is heroes transformed from soldier heads like Avril. They can actually be considered quite miserable, because if there are not enough soul crystals, these heroes transformed from soldier heads will have level restrictions. Avril and the others each have 4 basic skills, and 1 ultimate skill. Then there is the worst level of qualifications, which did not exist before. They are heroes transformed from ordinary units, and they only have 3 basic skills, and 1 ultimate skill. However, the advantage is that this type of hero can convert their strength into hero level from the beginning, and there is no level limit, and they can be upgraded to level 10. Of course, Davian is an exception. If the form conversion is also considered as a skill, then Davian has 4 basic skills and the ultimate skill of dragon fighting in the wild. Moreover, it has independent and different skills in dragon form and human form. However, it is not surprising that Davian is a hero transformed from a native dragon of Eslays. It is just that the bloodline of the dragon family is excellent. After the Blood Mage, the heroes who were canonized and transformed are Omni Knight, Chaos Knight, Light Ranger, Dark Ranger, Windrunner Elf Guard, Trent Guard, Troll Warlord, Ursa Warrior, Tusk Sea People and Admiral. Ufei also checked the attributes of each hero in detail when these heroes were successfully transformed. Thanks to the book friend Kyanbian Princess for the monthly ticket. Chapter 548 Various Skills. Omni-Knight, originally the first patron knight among the Blood Elves, has the skills of Baptism, Holy Guardian, Degeneration Aura and Guardian Angel after the successful transformation. Specifically, the main role of this hero is Auxiliary. Among his skills, only Baptism has damage, and this only damage skill is to cause damage to the surrounding enemies by healing a certain friendly unit. In addition, Holy Guardian can make friendly units immune to magic, and Degeneration Aura can greatly reduce the attack speed and movement speed of enemies in a large range around, which can be regarded as a continuous group control skill. It is worth mentioning the Guardian Angel. The effect of this skill is equivalent to invincibility, but the range of action is not large. But even so, it can play an important role in some special situations. Chaos Knight is transformed from the first Blood Rage Knight among the Blood Elves, and has Chaos Arrow, Reality Rift, Critical Strike and Illusion skills. Chaos Arrow is a damage skill, Reality Rift is a displacement skill, and Critical Strike is a passive skill that increases the chance of critical strike. Chaos Knight is a relatively versatile hero. In fact, he may be more in line with the title of Omni-Knight. As Chaos Knight's ultimate skill, Illusion can summon several clones with the same attributes as the main body, but they will suffer double damage. However, this defect is only a flaw that can be outweighed by its merits. It can instantly increase the strength several times, which is only possible with the skill of Illusion. Dark Ranger, Light Ranger and Windrunner are three sisters, all transformed from archers of the Education Bureau. Among them, Dark Ranger has 4 skills: Frost Arrow, Silence, Life Drain and Archer Talent. Ufei can easily see that this template of Dark Ranger is actually a combination of Black Game in War 3 and Black Game in Dota. The highlight skills of Dark Ranger are Large Scale Silence and Life Drain, which are similar to the Star Absorbing technique but absorb health. The ultimate skill Archer Talent, that only increases a lot of agility, may not seem to be outstanding, but think about Tino's ultimate skill Growth, which is also an ultimate skill that only increases attributes, but makes Tino very powerful, and you can see the extraordinary Archer Talent. Light Ranger has the skills of Chaos Arrow Rain, Shuttle Ice Arrow, Silence and Magic Crystal Arrow. Perhaps because they are sisters, both Black Tur and Light Tur have a large scale silence skill. However, these two silences do not mean overlap, because due to the duration and cooldown of the skills, the silences of the two sisters can be combined to achieve a nearly seamless silence effect. As for Chaos Arrow Rain, Shuttle Ice Arrow and Magic Crystal Arrow, they are all extremely strong output skills, no need to elaborate. Windrunner is the youngest of the three sisters. In fact, the name Windrunner is the surname of the three sisters of the Ranger. The skills possessed by Windrunner are Power Strike, Binding Strike, Windrunner and Concentrated Fire. Power Strike and Binding Strike are conventional attack skills and control skills respectively, and Windrunner's skill, which is the same as the hero's name, can form a state of physical immunity. Concentrated Fire is a skill that can form a terrifying output in a short period of time. The appearance of the Elf Guard was somewhat unexpected to Ufei. He did not expect that the peasant unit of the Night Elves could also become a hero. The skills it possesses are Lightning Chain, Phantom Soul, Overload and Advent. Elf Guard is more of a strategic hero. Although Phantom Soul has high damage, and Overload greatly increases the attack speed of Elf Guard, its highlight skills are Lightning Chain and Advent. Advent allows Elf Guard to teleport friendly units connected by Lightning Chain to a far place and return after a period of time. However, when the Lightning Chain is cut off, the teleported units will not return with the Elf Guard. Originally, the units that Lightning Chain can link to were limited in the game, but now Elf Guard can link to a large number of friendly units. This means that in the war, Elf Guard can transfer a large number of troops at any time, which is a veritable divine soldier descending from the sky. Trent Guard is transformed from a giant wood guard. It is a meat shield hero similar to the mountain giant hero Tino, but also has powerful control skills. The skills it possesses are Nature's Cover, Parasitic Seed, Living Armor and Crazy Growth. In the game, the Trent Protector's Nature's Cover, a skill that can make a friendly unit invisible and increase its movement speed, not only has the restriction of not being able to stay away from trees, but also is a single target skill like Living Armor. However, in Avril, Nature's Cover and Living Armor have become group skills, and Nature's Cover is no longer restricted to being away from trees. Crazy Growth is the signature skill of the Trent Protector, which can bind enemies in a large range around it, and is much stronger than the Jungle Guardian's Entanglement skill. The next heroes are not heroes of the Blood Elves and Night Elves. First is Gargant, the Hill Dwarf, who became the King of the Hills. This is also in line with his current identity, the most powerful one among the Hill Dwarfs. Of course, this power is given by the Night Elves. The Hill King Gargant has a single target skill Storm Hammer with extremely high damage and a stun effect, a heavy attack that passively increases the chance of stun with normal attacks, or Thunderstrike with range damage and deceleration, and 4 magical skills of the God of Heaven. It can be said that among the warrior heroes, the King of the Hill is the strongest one. You may remember that in the game, the King of the Hill was the well-deserved level 10 Dual King. However, right after the King of the Hill, a powerful warrior hero who could rival him appeared, and that was the Ursa. Earth-shaking is almost identical to the Thunderstrike of the King of the Hill. Super Strength can increase the Ursa's attack speed by 4 times in a short period of time, and Fury Blow can gradually increase the subsequent damage to the same unit. The ultimate skill Enrage will greatly increase the Ursa's attack power in proportion to its health. War 3 and Dota are different. You really can't tell whether the King of the Hill is stronger or the Ursa is stronger in a duel. However, thinking that the Ursa's super strength and Enrage's status skills can actually be dispelled, you acquiesced that the King of the Hill is more powerful. The Troll Warlord was transformed from a Frost Troll, but his skills have nothing to do with Frost. The skills it possesses are Berserker's Fury, Whirlwind Axe, Bloody War Spirit and Battle Focus. The Berserker's Fury of the Troll Warlord is actually a state conversion skill, which can transform it from a melee form to a ranged form, and the Whirlwind Axe skill will also change accordingly. Bloody War Spirit is similar to the Ursa's Fury Blast, except that the former increases the attack speed and the latter increases the damage. The ultimate skill Battle Focus is also a skill that greatly increases the attack speed, and it can be effective on friendly forces in a small range around it, and the cooldown time is also very short. Tusk Seamen are transformed from the Tuskal people living on the coast of the far North Sea. Among the skills it possesses, Sea Ice Shard is a damage and binding skill, Snowball is a displacement and control skill that can carry friendly forces. Frozen Seal can summon a blizzard to greatly reduce the attack speed and movement speed of enemies within the skill range. The ultimate skill Walrus Swing is a single target output skill with extremely high damage. Yorick is the last one to be transformed into a hero. He has the template of an admiral and has the skills of Torrent, Tidderbringer, Maplandmark and Ghost Ship. There is nothing much to say about the first 3 skills. Only one Maplandmark is interesting, which has the ability to teleport. The importance of the Admiral is reflected in the ultimate skill, the Ghost Ship. This skill has a very long casting distance, enough damage to stun the range, and can also increase the beneficial status of friendly forces. It is a very useful skill, especially on the sea where Yorick is. The effect of this skill is unparalleled. So far, all the units that Ufeli has searched for that can be transformed into heroes have been transformed into heroes. Including the Jungle Defender, Ufeli has added 15 heroes with various skills in a short period of time. Maybe some book friends will say that this chapter is too water. But what Hongchen wants to say is that these introductions about heroes are still necessary, and Hongchen has worked hard to delete the data. At least, the specific attributes of the heroes and the specific descriptions of the skills are not posted again. If you follow the previous writing about heroes, Hongchen can write 5 or 6 chapters for these 10 heroes. If you feel that this chapter is a bit boring, please forgive me. The protagonist has just upgraded to the level of the Eternal Tree, and there are many things that need to be explained. Please forgive me. Chapter 549, Battle of Dwarf Hills. While transforming the newly added heroes, Ufeli also carefully understood the changes in other buildings of the Night Elves after he upgraded to the Eternal Tree. Of course, Through the game experience on Earth, Yufei actually already knew the changes of the Night Elves at the Eternal Tree level. To understand it again is just a review. Just as Yufei thought before, the strength of the Night Elves is truly fully unlocked at the Eternal Tree level. Not to mention that all the technologies in the Hunter Hall have been able to be researched to the highest level. Just the unlocking of branch-specific technologies such as Raptor Druid Master Training and Claw Druid Master Training has greatly improved the strength of the branch corresponding to the technology. In addition, the equipment that appeared in the Miracle Ancient Tree has also been upgraded. In terms of hero equipment, not only advanced equipment such as Butterfly, Golden Hoop, Radiance and Black King Staff are unlocked, but even artifacts such as O'*BRIEN**SOUL Breaker Sword, SOLIDAR**STARS Fury and even Holy Sword appear in the store sales list. The moment he saw these familiar equipment, Yufei immediately made up his mind buy. No matter how expensive it is, I have to buy it. The properties of those artifacts are really too tempting. As expected, the price of artifacts is naturally very expensive. What's more important is that each piece of equipment will not be refreshed until some time has passed after it is purchased. For example, Yufei was originally going to synthesize the equipment of Star's Fury as soon as possible, but it required 2 demon blades and waited for a while before it was synthesized. Yufei, who wants all his heroes to have artifacts, will have to wait for a while. Corresponding to the hero equipment, the special equipment for the arms that can be exchanged in the Hunter Hall has also unlocked higher level categories. However, there are too many Night Elf soldiers now. Even with the current energy reserves of the Night Elves, it is impossible to update all the equipment of the arms in a short time. After careful calculation, Yufei found that, although the hero equipment is very expensive, there are only 20 to 30 heroes. In general, the energy consumed is not much compared to the current energy reserves of the Night Elves. It's just that the gap in the equipment of the arms is too large. Well, these gaps can only be filled from humans. After ordering a group of elves to build the Chimera Roost, Yufei immediately went to observe the battle between the Night Elves and the Orcs in the Dwarf Hills and the Northern Icefields. Yufei's return had already greatly boosted the morale of the Night Elves, and it seemed that their attack power had increased a lot when they fought. Now that Yufei's body has been upgraded to the level of the Eternal Tree, he has unlocked and researched many technologies, which has made the Night Elves even more powerful. Now the Night Elf soldiers, even the most basic archers, have the strength of gold level under the bonus of various technologies and arms equipment. If the arms equipment is updated, the strength will increase. Such strength is reflected on the battlefield, and it is an invincible posture. Perhaps the Orcs did not take the north as their main target of attack. Soon after the Night Elves' strength increased, and they fought back, the passage made by the Orcs in the northern icefields was cut off by the Night Elves again, and the Orcs did not attack from here again. In the Dwarven Hills, however, the Orcs who occupied half of the Hill Dwarves did not retreat, and were still entangled with the Hill Dwarves and the Night Elf reinforcement. However, at this time, Gargant had successfully transformed into the King of the Hills, and rushed back to the Dwarven Hills to lead his people to fight. What Yufei focused on observing was Gargant's strength. Under Yufei's deliberate support, Gargant, as the first Hill Dwarf to meet the Night Elves, not only entered the Elders' Council of the Hill Dwarves at the beginning, and led the Hill Dwarves to join the Night Elves, but also improved his strength to the level of barely entering the epic level. After transforming into a hero, Gargant naturally had a level of 7. At Yufei's signal, Avril did not interfere with the actions of the Hill Dwarves, but cooperated with Gargant, who had become the King of the Hill. Avril, on behalf of the supporting Night Elves, expressed her cooperation with all of Gargant's actions. The soldiers of the two tribes gradually gathered together to form a large army. When the Hill Dwarves and the supporting Night Elves gathered together, the Orcs might have also found out the situation. When Gargant and Avril gathered a large number of troops to sweep the enemy-occupied areas of the Dwarf Hills, the Orcs troops also gathered. For the glory of the Hill Dwarves, teams of heavily armored Hill Dwarf warriors shouted slogans and rushed towards the Orcs on the opposite side. Although the Hill Dwarves' forging ability is not as good as the Dark Iron Dwarves, they have the armor exchanged from the Hunter's Hall, provided by Yufei, and their equipment is very sophisticated. The reason why Ufei spent resources to equip the hill dwarves, who are only a vassal race, with the lowest level of enchanted equipment is naturally not just because of kindness. In his opinion, if the hill dwarves are better equipped, they can naturally serve as the front row to resist the enemy's offensive, protect the Night Elves from wind and rain, and reduce the losses of the Night Elves. Although the Night Elves also have meat shields such as mountain giants and claw druids, it is better to reduce losses. Besides, this can also increase the favorability of the hill dwarves towards the Night Elves, so why not? With the well-equipped hill dwarves charging, the Night Elves in the rear can naturally output at full strength comfortably. Ranged troops and melee troops complement each other. While the hill dwarves gather together to launch a charge, the archer troops of the Night Elves also suppress firepower. The soldiers of the Orcs are brave, but in the battles in the northern icefields and dwarf hills, Ufei discovered a fatal flaw of the Orcs: they have very few ranged troops. After a long period of observation, Ufei found that, although there are many things of the Orcs in Warcraft among the Orcs and SLAs, such as healing gods, in fact, the Orcs and SLAs are not the Orcs in Warcraft. If the Orcs in Warcraft also came to SLAs, then the appearance of those green-skinned Orcs should be the appearance of the Orc infantry in Warcraft. But after Ufei compared them, he found that, although the ordinary soldiers of the Orcs here also turned green for some reason, their appearances were still different. Some were green-skinned tiger people, some were green-skinned bear people, and even green-skinned pig people. However, no matter how hard he looked, Ufei did not find the classic appearance of the Orc infantry with long teeth in SLAs. This means that, although the Orcs and SLAs have some abilities of the Orcs in Warcraft for some unknown reasons, they have actually only made some changes on the original basis. This is reflected in the lack of Orc long-range troops. In the Warcraft game, the headhunter of the Orcs is a very sharp long-range soldier. Although the range of the headhunter is not as long as that of the Night Elf archer, its attack is much higher than that of the Night Elf. Moreover, like the heroic troll warrior under Ufei's command, the headhunters also have the berserker skill, which can be activated to increase the attack speed. However, there is no troll race in SLAs. The only trolls that still exist are probably the frost trolls that have already joined Ufei. Perhaps it is for this reason that the Orcs and SLAs show the disadvantage of lacking long-range troops. However, even under the rain of arrows from the Night Elves and the brave charge of the hill dwarves, the Orc warriors still showed a tenacious will. Even many Orc soldiers launched a counter-attack against the hill dwarves under the arrows of the archers. The scene of the Orc soldiers with simple armor and primitive weapons shouting meaningless slogans and counter-attacking together looks quite spectacular. Could they be shouting for the tribe? Looking at this scene, Ufei suddenly had this ridiculous idea in his mind. It's a pity that bravery alone is useless. Perhaps the soldiers of the Orc tribe are much stronger than the hill dwarf warriors, but the gap in equipment is too big. And if their enemies are only the hill dwarves, those armors are not enough to equalize the fighting power of both sides. From the dwarf warriors and Orc warriors who often tremble their hands after the weapons clash, it can be seen that, if only the dwarves and the Orcs fight, those armors will probably only become spoils of war for the Orcs. Fortunately, the hill dwarves have a backstage and background. The Night Elf archers supporting the dwarf hills are almost all elite. After studying the advanced power of the moon, the damage of the archers has been greatly improved. Although the dwarves are at a disadvantage in the fight between the Orc warriors and the dwarf warriors on the battlefield, those Orc warriors who have almost no armor seem vulnerable when facing the sharp arrows of the Night Elf archers. If it were ordinary human archers, I'm afraid they wouldn't have such a good effect. After all, the Orcs and dwarves have been mixed together, and it is difficult for ordinary archers to avoid accidental injuries, especially when a large number of archers are firing at the same time. But if it is applied to the Night Elf archers, the volley is actually just a burst of fire. Often, when an Orc soldier is fighting with a dwarf warrior with all his strength, and just wants to smash the enemy's tin can, he is shocked to find that an arrow suddenly flies out from the enemy's ribs and takes his life. However, perhaps because the Orcs who evacuated from the northern icefield have all come to support the dwarf hills, the number of Orcs is countless. With the help of the healing guards in the rear, the Orcs seem to be in a disadvantageous situation, but have not collapsed. At this time, Gargant finally couldn't help it. It's very difficult to write this chapter, so I will only write one chapter today, and I will try to make up for it tomorrow. PS. I hope Hanshin is not spamming, and the equipment data and technology descriptions are not listed. Book friends who don't understand can go to Baidu to check the equipment. There have been explanations about technology before, so you can look it up. PS2, if you think which heroes are suitable for which equipment, you can put forward your ideas in the book review area. Chapter 550, God Descends. Although the Orcs showed signs of decline under the coordinated attack of the Dwarf Warriors and the Night Elves, the Dwarf Warriors who were carrying the monsters also suffered heavy losses. These were all Gargant's people, and Gargant could not bear to watch them being beaten into shrunken tin cans one by one. In fact, Gargant wanted to lead the charge at the beginning, but he was the leader of the hill dwarfs who commanded the battle, and for a while he could not easily rush to the battlefield. But now, the orcs and the dwarves have already fought in a group, and there is no need for command at all, and Gargant can also participate in the battle personally. Bang! A somewhat illusory pale white air hammer flew out of Gargant's hand and hit the head of an orc who was grinning and swinging his battle axe at the knockdown dwarf warrior under him. Snap! The head of the unlucky orc was directly smashed into pieces by this storm hammer, and red and white objects splashed everywhere. The dwarf warrior under him, who was thought to be dead, stood up with a lingering fear and roared to fight again. The dwarf warriors who were able to participate in the battle and rush to the front were all mentally strong and would not be frightened. This storm hammer was the first sound of Gargant's participation in the battle. Seeing a large number of his fellows being killed by the orcs, he was already a little excited and could not control himself. After sending out a storm hammer to rescue the dwarf warrior, Gargant rushed into the battlefield with his lips tightly pursed. Gargant, who was already a level 7 hero, was facing the epic strength of the world of Veslazer. Although the orc soldiers were brave, they were not enough in front of the epic strongman, especially when there was no strongman who could compete with Gargant. If it was not on the already chaotic battlefield, but the orc soldiers were besieged by Gargant, then even if there were heavy losses, the orcs would win in the end. But now it is in a stalemate. Although the orcs have killed and wounded many dwarf soldiers, they are still slightly at a disadvantage under the attack of the Night Elves. Gargant's participation in the war has obviously become a powerful new force. Even if he becomes the heroic king of the hill, the essence of Gargant's dwarf will not change. He still has a pair of short legs. Fortunately, the movement speed of an epic level strongman will not be limited by the length of his legs. Gargant only took a while to rush to the forefront of the exchange of fire between the orcs and the dwarves. The reason why it took a while was that when Gargant passed by some dwarves who were in a stalemate with the orc warriors, he always couldn't help swinging his giant hammer and smashing the orc to death. Of course, if he kept smashing the orcs to death one by one, even if Gargant was exhausted to death, it would not bring a decisive change to the battle situation. Therefore, he rushed to the front line, ready to show his epic power. The Storm Hammer of the King of the Hill is a single target damage skill, which has extremely high damage and a long-term stun effect. However, this skill can only cause single target damage. In such a large battlefield, it is not very useful, unless it is used to kill the enemy commander in seconds. Although Gargant has been observing the battlefield for a long time, he still cannot find out who the commander of the orcs is. Therefore, even if he rushed to the front line, he could only reluctantly give up the idea of using the Storm Hammer to carry out a decapitation operation. However, the Storm Hammer only has single target damage, which does not mean that the King of the Hill can only kill single targets. Boom. Gargant slammed the hammer in his hand on the ground fiercely, causing the surrounding ground to not only tremble, but even crack slightly. Thunder Strike. This is the only group attack skill of the King of the Hill. The cracking of the ground is enough to explain the damage of the Thunder Strike. Gargant had already rushed to the front line, and there were only orc warriors, but no dwarves around him. Or Thunder Strike went down, and his surroundings were suddenly covered with tigers and bears. If it is used to deal with opponents of the same level or even 1 or 2 levels lower, then the damage of the Thunder Strike will not be too obvious. Instead, the important thing is the deceleration effect. But if it is only used to deal with these orc warriors who are only slightly stronger than ordinary dwarves, then the effect of Thunder Strike is very obvious. The deceleration effect is not apparent at all, and the orc warriors around Gargant have been killed by his blow. Whether it is the strong green-skinned tiger man or the tall and mighty green-skinned bear man, they all collapse to the ground with broken bones and tendons under this thunder strike. The damage range of Thunderstrike is naturally far less than that of Tyrant Starfall and Sky Druid's Nature's Wrath, which have super large scale damage skills. But on this battlefield, where people are next to each other, or Thunderstrike is enough to kill hundreds of orc warriors. Although compared to tens of thousands of orcs, these hundreds of instantaneous kills are still a drop in the bucket, but the morale improvement brought about is very obvious. Just like the war between the Lava Kingdom and the South Abyss Alliance in the Demon World. In fact, in a large-scale war, where the strength of both sides is not much different, victory or failure depends on the strong. Now Gargant charged freely among the orc warriors, as if there was no one in the world. When his warhammer was swung, an orc would die. Even Ufeli could not see the effect of the Hill King's heavy attack take effect, because before the high probability of stun took effect, the orc warrior targeted by Gargant would be killed in one go. In addition to the occasional thunder strike, more than 1,000 orcs died at the hands of Gargant in just a few minutes. Now the battlefield has evolved into a situation where wherever Gargant goes, the orcs there will quickly disperse, which can be said to be invincible. The emergence of this situation is obviously a huge blow to the morale of the orc warriors. However, the orcs did not have a strong man who could compete with Gargant, and could only sit and watch Gargant kill 7 times in his own camp, and go in and out, as if there was no one in the world. Gargant also knew that, although he looked aggressive, the actual killing effect could not have a big impact on the battle situation. Therefore, it not only began to rush around in the places where the orcs were densely packed to scare the orc warriors, but also aimed at the healing guards behind the orcs. Ufeni's god's perspective allowed him to see that the healing guards on the orc side were actually cast by some orcs wearing robes that were already very luxurious for the orcs. Although Gargant could not see this scene, he could easily find the location where the healing guards were placed under Ufeni's guidance. With a hammer, those healing guards that allowed the orc warriors to recover quickly and fight without any worries were smashed to pieces by Gargant. The orcs wanted to stop Gargant, but as soon as a large number of orc warriors rushed up, they were directly cleared by Gargant's thunder strike. The healing guards could not move, so they could only watch Gargant demolish those healing guards. The only thing that could comfort the orcs was that those orcs in robes were not caught by Gargant. They were not like healing guards, who had feet and could run. Seeing Gargantu rushing over from a distance, these robed orcs fiddled with their weapons on the spot, and then retreated to the rear. Their fiddling also showed its effect after Gargantu demolished the healing guard. A sizzle sound like an electric shock rang out, and Gargantu, who was charging and shouting, was suddenly forced to stop, and fainted on the spot. Seeing that there was an advantage to be taken, the surrounding orc warriors rushed up and wanted to kill this powerful dwarf who was attacking their own camp at will. It was a pity that except for the fastest orc, the rest of the orcs had already woken up before they could touch Gargantu, and another thunderbolt killed all the orcs who surrounded him and wanted to die. And the orc warrior who was lucky enough to attack Gargantu only cut a white mark on Gargantu's body and failed to cause Gargantu even a little damage. However, after such a strong Gargantuan took 2 steps forward, he was stunned on the spot with the sound of a surge of electricity. After another 2 seconds, Gargantuan, who woke up again, was extremely depressed and didn't know what was going on. Ufei, who was in the god's perspective, saw it clearly. Gargantuan was stunned twice for no reason, which was actually arranged in advance by those robed orcs. On the way forward, those robed orcs set up invisible traps one by one. It was these invisible traps that made Gargantuan stunned for 2 seconds. After taking 2 steps, Ufei knew that this was the static trap skill of the Troll Witch Doctor, an orc soldier in the Warcraft game. It seems that those robed orcs have the ability of the Orc Troll Witch Doctor, and the healing guard is also the signature skill of the Troll Witch Doctor. The static trap originally had the effect of stunning for 6 seconds. It seems that, because Gargantuan is a hero, the stunning time was greatly reduced. Just when Ufei made a judgment, Gargantuan finally made a new move. He raised his hammer and roared at the sky. Then his short and powerful body emitted a strong silver light and expanded rapidly. Did he use the ultimate skill, descend to the earth? This was a good choice. Ufei praised Gargantuan's response. descend to the earth, as the ultimate skill of the King of the Hill, can not only greatly improve the attributes of the King of the Hill, but more importantly, it makes the King of the Hill immune to magic. Soon, Gargantuan's size expanded to the same level as the mountain giant, and his skin turned silver. The god has successfully descended on Gargantuan. With his legs, that have become very long, but still very strong, Gargantuan continued to move forward. Those invisible static traps were constantly being triggered, but they had no effect on Gargantuan, who was immune to magic. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.